Call to order the meeting of the mayor and council and the select budget committee for March 18th, 2023, 8 a.m. I ask for a moment of silent reflection upon all those who are struggling to do right for our government, for our people, for those we serve. Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to
and
the
to the
republic
republic
which
for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for
justice
all.
for all.
Statement of compliance with the Open Public Meeting Act. This meeting complies with the Open Public Meeting Act by notification via March 1st, 2023 sunshine notice containing the time, the date, and access information, town news, and the record, and by posting the same on the municipal bulletin board and the borough website. Filing notice of the same with the municipal clerk. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilman Kanigo.
Present.
Council President Kaufman.
Here.
Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Here.
Councilwoman Kinsella.
Here.
Councilwoman Malolari.
Here.
Councilman Benson.
Here.
Mayor Paparella.
Here. Could I have a motion and second from any member of council to open to the public?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded of the council. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, we are now open to the public. Council President, if you would take the lead.
If anyone has a question, just raise your hand and I'll allow you to speak. Does not look like there's
Very
a,
well. What? Okay,
it does not look like there's a question.
very well. Then, could I have a motion and second from any member of council to close to the public?
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All right. We are now at item number 6, 2023 budget discussion and review of capital requests. First up will be our police department. Second will be our Office of Emergency Management. Third will be the fire department. Fourth will be Department of Public Works. And last will be the Recreation Department. We have set aside 8 to approximately noon. We may extend that or we may end earlier. Ms. Apatella, our business administrator, you may take the lead.
Good morning. I was hoping to first just start with the overview, the tax impact summary sheet. If our CFO can share that on the screen and go over what the budget looks like as of today. With the finalized numbers, we did receive the BCUA bill, so that did help the initial projection. Okay. So the major drivers, as you see on the screen, were the employee group health benefits through the state. They increased by 22%. Even entities who were self-insured had over 20% increases. We had our contractual increases. We received the BCUA bill, and without going over every item. And then what we are anticipating is increasing funding for our garbage contract. It does not go out to bid until next year. However, municipalities have been seeing increases between the high 70% to over 100%. So instead of just having the big impact next year, we are anticipating about half of the increase this year and half next year to minimize a tax surge. And now I yield the floor to our CFO to provide any other more detailed explanation.
Thanks, Lizette. Good morning, everybody. I'll be very, very quick with the high-level overview. I know that you're looking at the screen right now. It's not ideal, right? We're at 5.7% increase. It's about $238 on the average house. You can see on this sheet in front of you, there's about 17 accounts that make up more than 100% of the increase. And a lot of them are really outside of our control. Now, full disclosure here, there are 3 line items on this list that are quote unquote optional, right? I don't recommend changing them. I don't recommend modifying them down. But if you were to ask our auditor or anybody else if there was absolutely anything that you can do to reduce this, then of course they're going to look at the garbage and say, okay, well, you didn't get the contract increase yet, so you don't have to put it in, but we're highly recommending that you do for the reasons that Lizette just mentioned. The same thing applies to that second line item, the deferred charges for unfunded ordinances. That's to prepare for future debt. We've got for reference, and we're going to be speaking about a lot of capital items today. For reference, we've got about $12 million, a little more than $12 million of authorized debt that we have not issued any financing for. It's what in a category called authorized but not issued. We've got another capital program this year that has another potential almost $6 million on top of that of capital items, right? So we could potentially have in the ballpark of $18 million of authorized but not issued. Now, last year at the end of the year, if anybody's looked at our financial statements, specifically the items that impacted surplus, you'll see that I restricted surplus by about $1.5 million last year. So it actually looks like our surplus went down. And everybody knows I usually call surplus fund balance. I don't like to use the word surplus, but for clarity, those two mean the same thing. So it looks like our fund balance went down last year, but actually I just restricted it by using our cash surplus to pay for some of the items, so I didn't have to borrow money and pay the high interest rates that we currently have for that, for the funding for some of our projects. That was to the tune of $1.5 million. As you're all aware, some of the projects that we have underway are going to be much higher than $1.5 million. We just haven't started receiving the large invoices from contractors yet. In some cases, haven't awarded the contracts yet. So we're going to be in a position where we're going to have to borrow money this year. I'm going to push it back as late as possible. There's a scenario where we might only borrow that money for 9 months, but if we're looking at 4 to 5% interest and we need to borrow, $4 or $5 million maybe. You're looking at adding another $250,000 of interest into next year's budget that is zero today. So I just wanted to keep that in mind. That's why we have the preparation for future debt in that unfunded ordinance, that second line item there on the major drivers. And if you look at the very bottom, the second to last item, the capital improvement fund, that was reduced this year by $145,000. So really, I'm only increasing our capital expenses by about $30,000 year over year because we're not keeping that capital improvement fund in there from last year. So the rest of the line items, I don't know if you want me to read them out, but most of them are contractual. Most of them are not optional. The one item salary adjustment account there, it looks like a large increase. However, this is for all non-contractual employees, which is something we haven't sorted out yet. So once we have an answer, if we were to have allocated that among all the different salary and wages accounts, they probably wouldn't be on this list. It probably wouldn't be considered a major driver. So just the items on this list, again, 17 of them, which includes two big decreases, or three big decreases. These are all the items that are 25,000 plus or minus. 14 large increases, 3 decreases make up more than 100% of the increase in this budget. So the total increase, if we look at the top right, the year-over-year change is $838,000 on our amount to be raised by taxation. This list makes up $906,000. So the other items in the budget are actually a reduction of about $70,000, $68,000 throughout. So these are the major ones. And then obviously, you know, we can have the discussion, and we will have the discussion about the capital budget moving forward.
Okay, before we move on from Chris, one question for me. Lizette quoted the health insurance increase as 22%, I believe, but I see on the screen 7.19. So for the public's benefit and for the council's benefit, as well as the committee's benefit, can you explain that?
Yeah, the reason why, so there was actually another document that you might have received that had a much smaller change in there as well. The $51,000 on the document that you might have seen before. So when on March 8th, this document's from the 28th, on March 8th, I actually revised it subsequent to a meeting that the local finance board had. Again, sorry, that was March 8th, where they were discussing items that can be put outside of cap. At that point, I modified the document to move it out of cap. I had a sum on the employee group health line, but I changed the portion that was allowed out of cap to a separate line. So for the sake of this conversation, I added those two back together. The number hasn't changed. It was just that it was outside of cap and it wasn't included on this list as aggregating as part of the employee group health. So the 7.19% is actually just that. It's just that 51,000, because the line below it, you know, you get a division by zero error, because there's 124,960 that's in a line outside of cap, and last year's was zero. If I add the 124,960 and the 51,40 together, you get your $176,000 increase. That would be about a 25% increase, a 24.7% increase over the $710,000 that was in last year's modified budget. So, and that's a combination of the 22% increase that we received across the board, state health benefits, and additional, you know, we had a couple of employees that became full-time that took benefits last year that, you know, you have a full year of benefits this year.
Good. I wanted to make sure the public understood why that number was different. Could Chris, is there more you're going to present? If so, I'll hold off on allowing questions at this time. If not, I'm going to allow questions on your introduction.
No, I think we can allow questions. Thanks.
Very good. So from the committee first, does any member of the committee wish to ask a question in regard for clarification or for probing? From the council, does any member of council wish to ask a probing question or clarification question? Councilman Kanigo and then Councilwoman Malari.
Just going forward, if we could, when we have these graphics on the screen, whoever's presenting should have the ability to point to it with their arrow so we can actually see. I'm having a little bit of difficulty trying to like focus in. I'm reading one column, you're talking perhaps about something else. So if we can just kind of focus it, highlight it however we can so we know what we're looking at, I think it'll be easier to process. And that's it for my comments.
I think that's well made. Councilwoman Malari.
One question that I have on the major drives, why the garbage and trash removal contractual and then below is garbage and trash removal multi-family? What's the difference?
One of those items is the contract that we would have with the company that picks up the garbage themselves, and the other is the tipping fees associated with garbage. So, and that's based on the tonnage. So that changes sporadically. And then built into that as well, you have any geez, I can't think of the name of the terminology that's used when you have, you know, condo associations that you're required to pick up their garbage, as well as part of the Municipal Services Act. So that was the word, Municipal Services Act. So that they're all combined in there.
Follow-up question?
Just tangential. What is our cap? What is our percentage cap that we can raise taxes? Like, we're limited, right? Or was that raised? What's the story there?
Well, there's two caps. There's the levy cap, is what everybody talks about mostly. That's your 2% cap, and the levy is the amount that you can raise in taxes. So there's a 2% cap on your levy, and then there's a maximum of 3.5% cap on your appropriations. That is something that you'll see that we do an ordinance for every year. It's called the COLA ordinance, and they allow you to raise that up to a certain cost of living. For this year, that cost of living adjustment was 2.5%. So our ordinance that we'll introduce, and I recommend highly that we introduce it. I recommend everybody introduce it, whether we use it or not. It is a little bit of an insurance policy that if we need it, it's available, but that ordinance will allow us to increase it an additional 1%, and anything that we don't use will get banked. So it's called a COLA cap bank ordinance. Now, as we discuss every year, and it gets more complicated as we do discuss it, but both of those caps do have exceptions. Some of those exceptions, the major ones, debt service, pension payments, capital improvements, healthcare is one of them. So
these big raises that we're hit with, we're exempt. We can, those don't count. Is that right?
Some of them do, some of them don't. This year, that March 8th meeting, the local finance board actually added a couple of additional exceptions. Those exceptions were for garbage and trash removal, recycling, gasoline, workers' comp, insurance. So some of the items that were hit very high with inflation this year, they added special this year at a meeting on March 8th, which is after a lot of municipalities had already put together an introduced budget. And my guess here is that the state was getting a lot of calls about municipalities that were not in compliance with those caps. So they did have a special meeting and added exemptions.
Was that something we should take advantage of this year, knowing that next year we're going to be hit with? I know you are taking advantage of it to some extent. Should we be taking advantage to it to a greater extent this year because we've got that exception?
Well, there's not a ton of guidance on it. That is an excellent question. Do we want to take the full advantage of increasing our, doubling our garbage and trash removal costs? The short answer is we certainly can do that. It would increase our cap base. We would have to, we can only do it to the extent that we have cap room available. We don't have very much cap space available as of right now. We only have about $20,000 left. So my recommendation is that we go to our full cap, but we would want to offset that maybe with a little bit more fund balance to not take a tax hit, simply because we know we're not going to spend the money. So I know it's going to go back into fund balance. You know what I mean? I'm not going to utilize fund balance that we don't think we're going to replenish.
Right.
But in future years, you'll have to keep that increase without using the surplus because you'll start to spend the money.
Yeah. I mean, just something to think about, because I think next year is going to be just as rough as this year. So, all right, thanks.
So I'm going to go to Councilwoman Monsanto Cohen in a second. For the public's benefit, Chris used a term, a finance term is called COLA. Sure that the public listening, some of them may know it, some may not. That's cost of living adjustments. So when you hear COLA, that would be an anticipation of inflation. Chris, would that be correct?
That's correct, Mayor.
Okay. Councilwoman Monsanto Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to go back to the garbage question. As I understand, the garbage and trash removal multifamily is from the apartments and the town gets a reimbursement. Is that correct?
I'm not aware of a reimbursement that we would get for that.
Lisa, maybe you know, that was I know that line speaks to the fact that the apartments have their own contractual with garbage collection, which is why
Yes.
there is two lines, correct?
Correct. And under the Municipal Services Act, if we're not providing the service, we are the ones that need to reimburse the various units. So the different apartments send a bill monthly, and that is the line that reimburses those charges.
All right, I just wanted to make that clarification for everyone in council and the public. Thank you.
Councilman Benson. Lisa, you need to lower your hand. Raising your hand, by the way, is good because on my screen, the picture boxes are limited. So I appreciate raising the hand. Councilman Benson.
Thanks. I had a question. I thought I heard that the contract for the garbage is going up. Did I hear 70%, 100%? I don't know is that correct?
Well, we don't go out to bid until next year, but
Mhm.
over the past 18 months from municipalities through the shared listserv that I participate in, when they go out to bid, the lowest increase reported, and this was last year, was 70%. Most towns are seeing 100% increase, if not more.
150 for a number of them.
Yes,
Wait,
so
that sounds like a huge number. I don't know if anyone here knows that. What's behind a 150% increase? Like, is that because they didn't increase for several years and now they're making up for it? I'm just curious if anyone can
It's-
provide
it's-
some. Yeah.
we have to go out to bid under the local public contracts law, but also the bids, about 90% of the template is established by the Bureau of Solid Waste under the DEP. So it all depends, the companies that submit bids to the various municipalities, and it just seems that over the course of the past 10 years, fewer and fewer companies are submitting bids. And over the past few years, most municipalities are only receiving one bidder. And even if you reject and go out to bid again and reject and negotiate, the increase is substantial. It's just the number of vendors in the market that respond to these solicitations.
And they've seen a big increase in their costs as well for fuel and for insurance, health insurance for their employees.
Fuel, insurance, liability, equipment costs, and then the wait for the equipment is not just us on our end, that if we order vehicles, it takes about 18 to 24 months. It's just a shortage of supplies and manpower.
Wow. All right. Well, thank you for the explanation.
Councilman, that was a very good question. The public should understand that we make every effort to get a competitive price. And your question goes to what the public might be thinking as they're watching a replay of this meeting. It is something we wish we had more latitude in, but at this time we do not. Councilman, do you have a follow-up question before I go to Mr. Rollman?
No, I'm okay. Thank you.
Mr. Rollman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got a couple of questions. One's a clarification on the employee group health. On your form on my screen, that's the first line. It's 176,000. In my book, which is dated 28th of February, I think that one is 51,000. Is that in fact the same thing? And is this just an increase that you've picked up since one was published and one wasn't?
Mr. Pataglia.
No, and so I apologize about that. That was what I was explaining before. Subsequently, when the division came out with the cap exceptions, I had renamed some of the accounts. So the portion, 124,000 roughly, of health benefits that we were allowed to move outside of the cap had a different name and didn't get aggregated into that employee group health line. All the tax impact and everything else should have stayed the same on your sheet. It was still part of the budget. It just wasn't getting grouped into that employee group health line because it had a different name. When I caught that, and it was at the top of the list because it was the highest number at the time, it was sorted in order, which is the same reason why the BCUA is kind of in the middle there at negative 49,000. But originally, the original draft of it was a much higher number before we got the actual invoice. So that was just something that I caught. It looked much lower than it should have been, but that was that is the correct number. It didn't change subsequently, but I do know that on the original document you have it said 51,000.
Okay, so the 51 is now 176.
And that's in it. So the 51 is the amount inside of the cap. That's the amount that we are restricted to. And that brings us up to a 4% increase on that line. The rest of it, $124,000, is the amount that the state's allowing us to keep outside of the cap.
Okay.
And that's
All
the
right,
appropriation. I'm referring to.
All right, I have a question, the garbage question. I have a couple of questions dealing with that. At one point you mentioned that the tipping fees were in that too, but is that in the garbage and trash removal contract? Or is that in the garbage and trash removable multiple family? Or is there a third number that I'm not seeing?
There's actually a third number. Those three, the contractual, the multifamily, and the third number is a sanitation landfill account. The increase on that was a little bit less, but those are the three that were combined to as part of our cap exception this year.
Okay, now this is just more of a strategy comment. If we increase our garbage and trash removal contractual to anticipate the change in the contract, are we tipping our hand to the people that are bidding, saying, hey, they got this amount of money in their budget? Or is it they can't figure that out?
The budget's a public document, so everybody does have access to read the budget. That is, I don't disagree with you. That's one question that we can certainly address here. But if we know that the increases are coming and we don't have them in the budget, we might have just as large of a problem, So I guess if the alternative is to put it in a contingent account or something like that, we can certainly do that as well. We can talk about strategy on moving it into a different place, just so that it's less visible, but it's less visible to everybody. So, and it's important that we're having these open meetings so that it's very clear that we're not trying to hide anything either. Right?
Okay.
So,
I don't disagree with your strategy. I'm just saying maybe we shouldn't be showing the people that are bidding our contracts our hand or as part of our hand. But okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rollman. If you could lower your hand, Councilman
Oh,
Kanigo.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to comment that I think that they would have a duty anyway to negotiate in good faith. I don't think that, and we would know what our towns around us are paying. And the fact that we're accounting for it early in a public meeting, I don't think is something that's going to be held against us. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman. Is there any other questions before we move on? Seeing none? Ms. Apatella.
Okay, so since we went over the overview, next item on the agenda is to start the capital review. And the first department that will be going over their capital request is the police department.
I'm sorry, Lizette. I was just talking to Jason. He was having a computer difficulty.
You're the first one up to go over your capital request.
Okay. I'm assuming everybody has there you go. Thank you, Chris. All right, the patrol vehicle replacement That replaces two
Chief, I'm
patrol
just gonna
cars.
hold you for a second, simply because Ms. Sanders is new. So in your books, everyone, under the tab that says capital, there's a single sheet. And this is where the chief is speaking from. That way you can take notes as you go. Go ahead, chief.
Sure, thank you. So the patrol vehicle replacement is something we do each year. That indicates that 135 replaces 2 patrol vehicles with the equipment, and the changeover is required. What if you look? If you're looking at the sheet, you'll see that in 2024 I put 0. I think if we can get these 2 vehicles this year, we'll be in a good place that we won't have to purchase any next year. Part of the reason is because we were able to get a vehicle through insurance about a year ago. Part of the reason too is these vehicles are so it takes so long to get them that we were able to push some of the older ones a little longer, and now the new ones are showing up. Another part of this vehicle replacement is that, and we'll figure out how much detail I need to get into with this, but we have the approval to have class 3, what are called class 3 officers for the schools. And that's actually a program that's going on around the state. It's increasing quite a bit here in Bergen County. In order to put those officers there, we need 3 vehicles. We Roosevelt, Cherry Hill, and the middle school would be where our 3 class 3 officers go. We need 3 vehicles. By replacing 2 new ones, we move these our vehicles down the line till they're exhausted. They're literally almost the wheels falling off before we get rid of them. This will give us the ability to take 3 very old cars, and these officers can use them. It's not about the transportation, it's about the presence of the vehicle. So the vehicle sits in front of the school all during school, and the officer obviously is a uniformed officer inside. So this will help us get there and allow me to have those extra vehicles for that program. And I know there might be some questions about the program, but I think it's probably best if I take one line at a time. So if you want me to take questions for the patrol vehicles?
Are there questions about the vehicles? Councilman Kanigo.
Just, it might also be helpful if we looked at the whole 5-year plan, because I know it has the same column that we're looking at, but then we can also understand what it is you're looking at going forward because of our difficult budget situation this year, so we can really make these decisions.
Mr. Battaglia, can you put the 5-year plan up for police vehicles and equipment?
So in your book, it's at the back of the police section.
Yes, but I want to try to put it up for the public as well.
I know.
I'm gonna try to do that. I'm not sure if I have the same document as you. So somebody else might need to share the screen, but give me a second to see if I can find this same document.
All right, while you're doing that, I'm going to jump to Mr. Ruhlman. Mr. Ruhlman, do you have a question?
Just very quickly, Chief, that's the 135,000 is for 2 vehicles or 3?
That's for 2 vehicles with the all the equipment, and again, the equipment for these things, everything, and I'm sure we're going to be saying this all day long. The cost of everything has gone up. So, when you get these vehicles, there's a lot of equipment that has to be put into them. The cages for the prisoners, all the electronics and stuff that are in front of the vehicle. I will say this: we are very fortunate because we have Pete Stitz. And Jason, I'm sure, could definitely echo this. We do this in-house. So our borough mechanic is able to put our cars together, and that does save us quite a bit of money. Nonetheless, the equipment, I have one sitting out back now. We're waiting on the equipment, and the equipment costs have gone up for the actual parts to turn them into a police car.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Sure.
Okay, Councilman Kanigo, do you have a follow-up or are you good?
No, just like I said, just if we can put up the 5-year plan so everybody can see it, because one of my comments is going to be with the vehicle replacement that I see that next year that it's a 0 cost. So maybe we can carry it over 2 years if that's, one of the things that the council and the budget committee wants to recommend. So I think we could support to see the 5-year.
Let's hold off that conversation until we get it up on screen. If we can't get it up on screen, we'll definitely talk about it before we release the chief. Chief, why don't you move on to ballistic vests?
Okay, I did notice, I thought Councilman Benson had his physical hand up.
Yeah,
Councilman Benson.
yeah, I just had a quick question, clarification. It might be a dumb question. I know there are no dumb questions, but I'm looking at the sheet on the right-hand side. It's debt authorized. I'm assuming all of this is part of the $18 million of authorized but not issued debt that was talked about in the previous with Mr. Battaglia.
Is that?
This is unauthorized. This is new potential of
This is
about
new-
6 million.
Yes, this is,
Oh.
this is why our CFO mentioned that if this full set of requests is included with the current 12 million in outstanding debt, it would lead to the 18 million. We're unable to share the 5-year plan. I have it saved in a different computer. But we could go over it verbally. In which the police chief has set aside for vehicles 135,000 for this year, 2025, 26, and 27, with 0 for 2024, as he had explained earlier, that these two vehicles, based on the lag time in delivery, as prior ordered vehicles are starting to come in now, there wouldn't be a need to encumber funds for 2024 for this particular purchase.
Okay, so let's go now back to Councilman Canigo. Councilman Canigo, could you express your suggestion in a way that not only council but members of the public could understand what you're suggesting?
Well, there's a requisition for patrol vehicle replacement for 135,000 in 2023.
Correct.
0 in 24, 135 in 25, 135 in 26, 135 in 27. So since this year we're having particular issues and with all our increases, I just simply said split it between 23 and 24 and give half for 23 and half for 24. That's all.
Yes, I think that's a good idea from a financial basis. Chief, what is it from your outlook? Is it
So
something that
again,
you-
the reason I pushed for the 2 this year is to allow for those extra old cars for the class 3 program. And that's why I said, could we, if we weren't doing the class 3 program, could we do 1 car this year, 1 car next year? Yes. But if we want to do that program, which is rolling along, so to speak, this would be the best option to do it.
But to Councilman Canigo's point, it's
Right.
not it's not a required. It acts as a visual deterrent to someone. Is what I think you were suggesting, that cars sitting in front of the schools act as a visual deterrent, but it's not necessary for the program to be enacted. Is that correct?
Right. Absolutely.
So the council may want to put a little note on their sheet, and so the committee, should we do it over 2 years, or 2 this year and 0 next year, or 1 this year and 1 next year? And we can return to that later, but we do have a full agenda, so I'm going to ask Chief, unless the council or the committee wish to ask a question or make a comment, for us to
Just
move on.
one more quick question. I'm sorry, Mayor, but so the 2 vehicles that we're accounting for is so that we can knock 2 of the oldest vehicles to the schools, to be parked in front of schools. Is that what I'm-
Basically, yes, it bumps the cars down the line, and we.
So if you don't park the 2 vehicles in front of the school, you don't need the 135 for this year? I'm not trying to play games.
No,
Chief,
I'm
just
going to
understand- I'm
need-
just trying to understand what
Listen,
you're asking.
we to do no vehicles would put us behind, and years ago, we've done that. And what it causes for is all of a sudden, then I'm asking for 3 vehicles, and Jason and I are trying to keep these cars going because they, these cars take on with engine time anywhere around 50 to 60,000 miles a year, or line cars. So they while they look good, they're really, they suffer after a couple of years. So this, by replacing 2 a year, what happens is we have 4 cars that go around the clock. And those cars, they just go from one officer to another, one officer to another. Generally, they'll last 4 years as line cars, right? And then we got to push them. Actually, they last less than that. They last a couple of years, and then we have to push them down the line. So by replacing 2 each year, you're taking care of that. However, as I mentioned when I started, we were able to, because things happen. We had a car that got, was in the flood a year or so ago. That car got replaced with some insurance and some cap money that we found. That actually helps us out as long as we were able to find the money, because now we have a newer car because of insurance, not a car that we had to, purchase. Things like that can happen, but I think it's just, you just have to be careful to say no cars, because it'll catch up to you. And then all of a sudden, again, I'm coming to you saying, guys, now we need 3 or 4 cars.
I get it, Chief. I want everybody to understand. I believe that we are in kind of an unprecedented area with the increases that we've been faced with this year. So that's why we have to be a lot tougher this year than any other year. And we've always been tough with taxes anyway.
Sure.
But this year we have to really look at every single penny we spend, because we cannot saddle the resident with a huge tax increase when everybody's already getting huge increases in every other aspect of their lives. So we have to vet everything. So I appreciate everything you're saying, Chief, but this is going to be my thought process going forward. I want it very clear.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, if we cut it down to 1 and we'd have to see what happens next year. I could say, yes, let's cut it to 1 and 1. But you never know what happens with the vehicles over a year, but generally we're replacing 2 a year. And what could we do with the class 3s? We could have a school where we don't have the patrol car in front of it right now. And we could see if we can figure out how to do that another way. But again, this would be the ideal move.
And look, there are going to be instances during this budget process and within even here that, we may need to plan for things going forward as well. So, certain things may not get fully funded, but maybe we'll be able to save some money aside knowing going forward. I'm just trying to really understand what everybody's needs are here before we make the final decisions, which will probably be at the next meeting. But, just to really understand what it is. So I appreciate your presentation, Chief. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, Chief, why don't you move to ballistic vest program?
I see Councilman Benson again. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, Councilman, I'm gonna really have to ask you to hit the raise your hand button.
Oh, I'm so
it's-
sorry.
Yeah, it's just very hard to manage a meeting like this if you're not doing that. But you're already recognized. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. I just had a quick question. I think there was some discussion about maybe pushing this money to 24 and not having vehicles in front of the schools. Do I have that right?
So it was actually a more complex conversation. The chief is saying correctly that there is tremendous wear on the vehicle simply in hours running, which means that the outside of the vehicle looks good, but the inside looks is suffering. So Councilman Kanigo was saying we might need to reduce from 2 vehicles this year and 0 next year to 1 and 1, or if we're really concerned, if we may take more drastic positions where we might move 0 this year and 1 next year. The chief is warning against that. Is that a fair summary?
I think so.
All right.
Thank you.
And if we do it that way, we wouldn't have vehicles to park in front of the schools. Do I have that right?
It's not a required thing, but
Right.
it's part of the overall deterrent, and the purpose of this class of officer is to deter
Right.
a school incident. So it fits into the model is what the chief is arguing for.
I understand. So I just wanted to clear this. So the police chief, that having that vehicle parked in front is very important part of the deterrence.
It is important, but you know, I absolutely respect Councilman Chinigo's you know, input that, you know, if it's not there, it's the officer is there. But that deterrence is important. The officer is the most important thing. And you know, I would say that I wouldn't want to get away from not finding it at some point to make sure that those cars are there. But again, I certainly respect Councilman Chinigo's you know, thought process with it.
Thank you.
All right, Chief, you may continue.
So the ballistic vest or vest replacements, the vest, again, they've gone up. They actually have gone up more than what these the cost would be here, but I wanted to keep it at 3,000. That basically replace 2 vests. We will replace more than that. We do get funds from federal funds, grants and things like that help us with this, but the 3,000 keeps us on course. Our vests last 5 years. So every 5 years we have to change the vest. And again, this is just replacing about 2 because they're about, they could be, you know, interestingly enough, it depends on how big the officer is, but they average between $1,400 and $1,700 a vest. So this is just keeping in par with making sure the officers are safe. And again, it prevents from all of a sudden me saying, listen, I got to get 10 vests this year. It actually, it's something we've just continued to do. Any questions on the vest?
I would like to say that we want to make sure that our officers are safe. I don't know how the council feels, but I don't have an issue with this element nor a question. Does any member of council have an issue or a question with this portion of the police budget, capital budget? Seeing none, go ahead, Chief.
Okay. The radio car tough books, those are the computers that we use in the cars. They have a 5-year, again, about a 5-year lifespan. And that's basically the office for the officer. Everything they do is on that car computer. We have 5 cars that we keep equipped with 5 computers. 4 of them work around the clock, as you heard me say, but one's basically a backup or used for you know, when we have another officer doing whatever it may be, when it needs to be a fully equipped car. So this is how much they cost, and it works. It's been working fine because their life expectancy basically teeters out after 5 years. When I say it's what the officer uses, so he's in the car, he does all his plate lookups, he does criminal history lookups. When he pulls somebody over, that computer gives him all the information. Because of the advancement in technology, he can write his reports in the car. It keeps him out of the building. It's a necessity. You can't. It also houses the body worn camera units, the radio car camera units. Everything is in that computer. So this just keeps us, and again, in a place where we've learned if we step away from it, again, what you'll face is, hey, guys, you know, we haven't picked one up for the last 1 or 2 or 3 years. Now we need, you know, 4 or 5 of them. So it's much like the VEST program.
Any member from council or committee wish to ask a question or make a comment? Councilwoman Kinsella.
Just a quick clarification, Chief. Is that just for one car, that tough book?
Yes,
Cost?
it's they're very expensive. They're made, as you see they're called tough books, and they need to be tough. The car bounces. You have a car could be 100 and some degrees inside. It could be negative degrees inside. They're literally tough laptops, very tough. When you close them, you can drop them if you had to. They stay in the car, obviously, but it's just the computer that are in radio cars.
Okay, thanks, Chief.
Sure.
Further questions from committee or council? Councilwoman Kaufman. Again, we ask if you could raise the hand, the electronic hand, not your physical hand.
Sorry about that. Yeah. So if you're buying 2 cars, is one car going to not have a tough book then?
No. So what happens is we move certain equipment from one car to another. So, while the car will not last 5 years, the computer does, right? The car won't last 5 years as a line car. It'll get too tired. So when we replace the car, we take the computer out of the other car. And then, only 5 of our cars are equipped with computers all the time.
Okay.
If we get one that lasts a little longer than 5 years, we'll put it in, we'll play it out a little longer, but we won't repair it. And eventually it just stops working. So all of our line cars plus one will always have a computer as long as we, as long as we keep the program going.
Thank you.
Any other question from council or committee? Seeing none, chief?
So traffic cones, signs, cones, and this is just the cost of all the signs and cones. Cones get beat up every year. We lose them, not when I say we lose them, they either get stuck in people's cars sometimes, or people take them actually, but we do the best we can. Sergeant Diamond is exceptional at this, keeping track of them, making sure officers pick them up. And he also takes care of the signs. We have to replace signs every now and then, whether it's because they just weather, because of storms, things like that. And that's just an ongoing program, and it's tight. That 5,000 has been that 5,000 for a while. That cost has gone up. We just try to make sure we're as efficient as we can with it, and we've been keeping that number. I haven't raised it. We certainly could raise it, but I'm not going to raise it. I'm going to make sure that we're as efficient as we can with that account.
Okay. Any member of committee or council? Seeing none, chief?
Okay, the fingerprint machine, actually, Chris, if I could point out, I checked on this yesterday, and of course it's gone up. It's 24,165, and that's good through June. So the fingerprint machine is what we do is we fingerprint. We have to fingerprint criminals. We fingerprint people for whenever they get arrested, they have to be fingerprinted. It's all part of, goes to the state system, the federal system, it's fingerprints. And, sure enough, we've gotten to a point where we have to get a particular fingerprint machine because it's connected through the state and so on. And at the end of this year, the fingerprint machine will no longer be compatible, and the state just shuts you out. So it's like they got you. And as with many things in government, you're just stuck. There's nothing you can do. You need this. We can't do arrest without it. And everything is processed through those fingerprints. Our complaints, criminal complaints, come out of those fingerprints. Everything that goes to the county for indictable crimes, serious crimes, goes through those fingerprints. So we need to get this by the end of the year. The one we have is just it's not going to work.
Okay.
And that's a one-time. I'm sorry, that's a one-time, and that lasts basically until they do it to you again. But it's several years before they do it again.
Councilwoman Monsanto Cohen.
Thank you, Chief. So the machine right now works, just that is no longer going to be compatible.
By the end of the year, so we have to budget for it now.
Right.
By the end of the year, they're telling us it's not going to be compatible with their system.
So that machine is useless after the end of this year, or is there a
well,
market to resell it?
We could try to sell it. We will do that with our electronic equipment. We could try to sell it as long as we can. Because I don't think it holds data. I think it just sends data. So as long as it's sending stuff, we can take a look at it and sell it. If it's holding stuff, we can't. We have to break it up actually, or get rid of it, because there would be confidential information in it.
Thank you.
Okay, chief, communication desk.
All right, so the communication desk is something, last year I took it off because I stepped into the communication desk renovation, and I wasn't comfortable with the specifics that were laid out for the desk. I didn't really have the companies or exactly what was put in that. So I took last year, I went through it, and the number is 300,000 to renovate our police desk. So what does that mean? The police desk, as you've heard me, last year, it's 36 years old. It's the only location in town that is used 24 hours a day, every single day of the year. And it's physically getting old and literally like it's starting to fall apart. We had to cut a big part of it out. And thankfully my lieutenant was handy, literally chopped off part of the desk to make it compatible for our camera systems. So this 300,000, it's really, when I look at it, again, it's very difficult to ask you for 300,000. So I look at it and I say, well, what can we do with this? We can cut this. If I look at the specifics of what I'm spending the money on, half of it is for radio communications. All right, desk radio communications. If you recall, last year we allocated 398,000 for our portable radios. We also connected to what's called the county trunk system. So we jump off of their antennas. It's been an ongoing endeavor to get these things to work properly with the county. It's no surprise to me, but the county, gives you a product. They don't charge us for it. It's 10 years for free. And then I'm, skeptical about what's going to happen after 10 years. The point of this being is the second leg of this radio communications is what needs to be put in our desk. Radios and communications are the lifeline of any emergency services. We need to be able to communicate. We have very good radios, but the system is, the two other parts to make it work is one, the county, and they tell me they're putting an antenna in Alpine, an antenna in Fort Lee, and another antenna in Secaucus, and that's supposed to help us all out. We'll believe it when we see it. On our end, the only other part that needs to be brought up to speed would be the desk radios. Right now, we have two big portable units that they gave us that are new, that work with our new radios. What we were doing was anticipating that we were going to renovate the desk and then put these new units in, the main units. This stuff is very expensive. So what I'm saying is, the other 150,000 is alarm systems, some other electronics, 911 system, and the actual physical, the desk and things like that. Can we not do that? I'm going to say we don't have to do that. We're going to have some drawers and stuff fall off, but we can contend with that. It's an analogy would be like the desk itself is like a 1970 Chevy, but we have the right computers in it, we have the right electronics in it, so we can still maneuver, and operate to the level we do. Just that these radios are important. Are we operating with the radios now? Yes, but we have difficulties. We're in touch with the county often to say what's going on. How come we're not able to hear each other? For example, you can't hear each other in the basement, from the basement to upstairs, in certain parts of town. We're constantly working to make that better. We're told if we do this second leg of our part, that'll get better. And then their part are those antennas. So I would say if I'm going to push for something on that, it would be 150,000 for the radios at the main desk.
Councilman Kanigo. I saw your hand come up and come down, but I still want to check on it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, let's cut to the chase. What's the minimum that you need on this line? And I think your answer is 150.
It's 150. I looked at it again this morning. It's 150,000 for the desk radios. And what this would do, obviously, is it's next year, depending on where we are, we won't be asking for 300. It's chopping the project up. Basically, I've been doing that. If I have extra money last year, as you guys know, I was able to update the cameras. So whenever I can, I chip away at it. If we have something to do that, if I have the money to do that, and I'll continue to do that. If I can find money from other areas, I'll do that. But there's certain big items like this that I can't come up with 150 anywhere else in the budget.
Okay, thanks, Chief.
Sure.
Mrs. Sanders.
You're muted.
Donna, you have to unmute.
Sorry, Chief, this is the digital system, right? Correct?
Yes.
Okay, so my question is, are you going to also maintain your current radios so that you can communicate with the outside agencies that have not gone digital?
So yes. So what's happened with that is Jason uses that we'll call it the old system, if you would, and he was able to allocate money to make sure we're keeping that system going. We've been critiquing it to do it in the most efficient way, but to make sure that it's working. All right. And so the answer to that is yes, because we obviously realize, the fire department's slowly moving over to the radios, and I know the ambulance corps, I think that's where you're going. The ambulance corps, the DPW are still on that. I will call it the old system. So we'll keep it working, but it's it's very possible to a lesser degree will we need the upkeep of it. And that's what Jason and I as late as last week, we're talking about how to go about that with the company to make sure, again, that we're not making it any bigger than we need to, but we're making sure that it works.
Okay, because I mean, I don't think Holy Name Ambulance Service has the digital service, but I'm not sure. Because I think they still call the police desk on the old frequency.
I'm not sure about that. I'm not aware of us having any difficulties communicating with ambulances, other than, just the regular things that can happen. But, we can take a look at that. And you're, that's your, that stuff. So we can certainly discuss that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sanders. Councilman Kaniga.
Well, I'm just wondering if there's so many different factions in town that communicate using these radios, and now we're having all these difficulties, and each year we're getting different requests for upgrades of radios. Is this something that we may want to take on as one big project, see what everybody needs radio wise, and see if we can come up, I don't know, bond ordinance or something to do this one project that doesn't impact the taxpayers so much in 1 year, and every year they're coming and asking us? I mean, is that something that we should be considering, like looking ahead in this thing?
I'm going to direct that question to Mr. Battaglia.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult when you talk about items like radios and any technology in general. My general idea is that you always want to look at big picture, but with technology, it's so difficult because by the time you roll out something over a number of years, you're onto a new technology already. Now radios, there's going to be more of a lag because everybody does need to communicate with each other. So, do I think that, you should aggregate the project and try to accomplish as much as you can. I don't know if it's as important with radios simply because, not every municipality is going to be upgrading all of their radios simultaneously because it's cost prohibitive, right? So there's always going to be this like retrofitting. You're almost always going to be able to work on both ends with various types of
I know, but from what I understand, and Chief jump in and Chief Caridi as well, correct me if I'm wrong, but we are behind on these radios. That's the issue. Like, a lot of these radios should have been replaced years ago, and we've chosen not to, and we've pushed them ahead and ahead and ahead because we didn't have the money. But now we've got, maybe it's more than just radios. Maybe it's technology in general. Because it's not just 150 that the chief is asking us for. I think Chief Caridi is going to ask us for some money for radios. We just heard that the ambulance is behind. We do know that the chief needs at least one tough book, maybe more. He's making do with what he has. Maybe we do something technology-wise for the town to bring us up to where we should be anyway, which we're not. So that's my thought process, because rather than taking these piecemeal year after year after year, and it costs us more piecemeal, maybe we do it all at once. But I'm no expert, so I'm spitballing here because we've got this financial situation, which I feel not a crisis, but it's a serious situation. So that's what I'm trying to do.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Battaglia.
Well, I was going to say, he's absolutely right. You're weighing out the cost versus the functionality. Are there going to be cost savings because of scale? Potentially, you'd have to aggregate the like items together, right? So like radios, if you purchase radios in bulk, there's a possibility. I don't know that it's a very large possibility, but there's a possibility that we have economies of scale, just because it's a larger purchase. Maybe there's a couple of companies that would be willing to give you better deals on a bulk purchase versus smaller items, tough books, things like that. You're going to be paying, one-off, and computers specifically, you're going to need new one every couple of years anyway. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that's worth pursuing to see if there's any cost savings in scaling up the radios, and maybe if you look at the total cost of all the radio replacements over a couple of years is X. Maybe doing it all at once is X minus some cost savings there.
Okay, Chief Caridi.
Good morning. I think that's a great idea, but as you know, I'm very frank. I think that ship has sailed. The fire department has all brand new portables. The 3 command vehicles have all brand new mobile radios. I don't want to speak for Chief Walker, but I believe all the police units have all brand new digital portables. So I think the time to have purchased a bulk radio purchase should have been probably 3 or 4 years ago, and not discussing that now. But yeah, I mean, the county, you know, right now, and when we get to my portion, I have fire apparatus that can't talk or monitor the police. So yes, communications are always changing. The county, a lot of departments are going digital. And I know enough about communications to be dangerous, and I admit that. So, but I think the idea of buying bulk, I think it's a great idea, but I think we're beyond that point.
Okay. Superintendent Melito.
Yeah, I just want everybody else to understand, there's 2 systems going on here, not one. 2 systems. I cannot get on an emergency channel. Emergency channels are going to be dedicated with the chief and with the fire, both chiefs are saying, the emergency channels in the trunk system is just for emergency assets. The DPW is not considered an emergency asset. So our unit has to stay with the repeater system that was in place already. That's why we're looking to update that system and get rid of the copper lines, and have a separate system where they can fall back. God forbid if there's like a hurricane or any of that stuff and the trunk unit gets overwhelmed, my system will be able, they'll be able to go back onto my system to talk in town if they ever had to, because the system is not perfected yet. But I just want that to be understood that there's 2 systems being talked about here. So I am not eligible to be on that trunk system. So that system has to be updated.
Council President Kaufman.
Given that the county gave you 2 new radios, couldn't we delay the whole project this year?
I'm sorry, the county didn't give us, when you say the 2 new radios, you mean the 2 that are working at the desk now?
Yes.
So those, yes, those, so we expected those to work. I'm going to say perfectly, which is a tough word to use when you talk about communications, but we went back to the county and say, why aren't we able to? You know, we just bought these all new radios, and as Chief Prudy said, the police department, all our radios are new, and that was the big purchase last year. The last leg of our radio communications are the desk radios. The 2 portable ones that are put there, they were put there because we anticipated that we need to renovate the desk, and we're going to renovate the desk at some point. So you're not, you know, ideally you renovate the desk and you do everything then. So we're looking at now, I'm saying, listen, I realize we can't do that, but I do need to communicate. So we would end up putting these new radios in the old desk. But that's if you know, communications is more important than the desk. With the way the desk looks, and if it literally starts falling apart, as long as the components are working, we can operate. So that's what that amount is. Those 2 radios that we purchased, what they do is they use them as a backup method. And you know, I'm not as knowledgeable as Chief Caridi with these radios, but it is explained to me. So they don't go to waste. They count as like a backup system. One goes in the basement, one stays at the desk. And then the new systems go in.
I guess I'm just saying, can't we delay this whole project?
So we can delay it, but again, so you know, it's serious enough that I've had next week the county is coming in to sit with me because I'm not happy with the trunk system. It doesn't work as Chief Jason said, you know, they haven't perfected it yet, but yet they rolled out the product, and I don't mean to take a shot at them, but to me it's typical county, you know, getting you involved in something that with a great sales pitch, and then all of a sudden, you know, it doesn't work, and that's fine for things that aren't protecting, you know, all of us, not just the officers, but if we can't communicate, we can't get anywhere, we can't do anything. So we're trying as hard as we can to push the county to say what's going on. I literally communicated with them a couple of months ago, and I said, you know what? I'm done with the trunk system. I'm done with it. We'll use our radios and we'll go in another direction. Next thing I know, I get the big cheese calling me, chief, take it easy. We're working on these antennas. And then I talk to other chiefs, they've been talking about these antennas, for a while. The antennas, obviously what makes the better communication. But now they're assuring me that the one in Englewood and the one in Fort Lee looks like they're going to say they're going to be up by the end of the year, and that should help us to communicate better. That's what I can do with them to push them. Us in-house, the last thing that we can look at to say, what possibly is it that is making it so that we're not communicating? And they're telling us, not the county now our radio company saying, listen, you guys, we gave you those 2 box units, but we anticipated that you guys were going to eventually do your desk. And when you do the desk, that's why it's $150,000. Those 2 units are nowhere near that much money, a fraction of that. The 150 puts in the real deal, if you would, for these radios. So, could we push it off? We could push it off, but I get very, very scared when it comes to communications. If we can't communicate, and the officers, I started an email chain to say, listen, instead of, I don't want to hear the complaints and the complaints. Let's use that word. Let's keep track of this. Let's look at it. And we look at where's the problems? Where aren't we communicating? Why? When? Is it weather? Is it this? We're doing the best we can to really fine tune and look at it, but we can't get the system to communicate to the level that it should be.
Councilwoman Kaufman, do you have a follow-up, or will I go to Councilman Kanigo?
Go ahead, thank you.
Councilman Kanigo.
Do we have a breakdown of the communications desk renovation line item, what it would be, this 300?
So the 300, 150 of it are the radios, and then,
Right. But an actual breakdown, is there did you go out and say, can you guys send us what it's going to cost, or is this just an estimate in your mind? It's going to be about 150.
No. So
what do we get for the 150? That's what I'm saying. Like, can we get an actual breakdown?
So that's the reason why, Dario, that I pulled it off last year, because I open up an envelope and it basically says 300,000. Coincidentally, it did turn out to be 300,000, but I open up an envelope and I'm like, well, what's costing us 300,000? So I have what cost 300,000. 150,000 is the cost for the radios, very, very specifically itemized.
Well, how many radios do you get?
That's just 2 radios. That's the base station radios. So
the
the
150, you get 2 radios.
But listen, it's not a radio like the portable radios we have.
Yeah, I don't know. So just explain it to me, because I have no idea what you're talking about.
Sure. The 2 radios are the 2 desk components. So it's an entire system that goes in each side of the desk. All right. Our radios, which we spent the $398 on last year, they're $8,000 each. Those radios that you see the officers walking around with, they're $8,000 each. Right. And they communicate with everyone that we need to communicate. We do cap drills to the plaza, and we're broken up into when if we need to help each other, we quickly can turn to a channel and communicate with 3 or 4 other towns, or the whole county, or parts of the state. And
so
that's
the 2 radios that you're using now, though, that the county gave you, are they handheld units, or are they?
No, they're a small box, but it's basically like a handheld unit, but it's a box. So
like a portable state, like a portable command center almost.
Yes, you could equate it to that. It's basically a portable radio in a box. As it's not the systems that it needs to be. When it's completed.
Where is it failing, or has it failed, that is your concern for now? And the only reason I ask is this: if we can avoid spending any money this year, this council, I believe, is going to want to avoid spending money. So we need to understand, if that is the case, where are we causing you problems? Where is the problem going to be for 1 year, not permanent, for 1 year?
Right. That's all. So I've been chasing the problems down, and what I'm being told from the radio, from the company that takes care of our radios, not the county, is that, listen, the desk is another link of this that needs to be brought up to the full level. And then you guys, in the police department, with all the new portables, all the new radios in the cars, and the desk complete, we're done. And it should get better. You know, I don't have a guarantee because the last leg would be.
I'm
the
asking you what the
tenants.
problems are. That's what I'm not understanding. You're telling me that the problems are gonna get better. I just don't have an understanding of what the problems actually are.
The
You know, so
problems
that-
are that we can't communicate with each other clearly. You know, if you were to listen to the officers communicate, you'll hear a garble. Or they just don't, we just can't communicate. Like, for example, I can't communicate to the basement headquarters. You know, the old radios did that. And I said, well, the old radios did that. How come the new ones don't? And they get into their explanation that, again, they feel that the desk radios will help that. If you go to the south end of town, there's areas, Total Wine has been an issue. You know, if you go to, you know, the north end of town, if you go to Memorial Park, sometimes that's an issue.
But I'm not feeling like you have any confidence that this is actually gonna solve the problem. It just
No,
sounds like
so
you're
it's-
switching one problem for another, perhaps.
What I feel is, look, I'm very realistic about it. I have to listen to the experts when they tell me, listen, the reason why you're still having problems, chief. And remember, as I said earlier, I pushed it. I had the main person from the county and the radio company. You know, you guys tell me why isn't this working? The radio company is saying, listen, what we can tell you is if you finalize your project, it's going to work better. If the county puts up the antennas, the county's saying that's the 100% piece. Now, you know, I'm always skeptical when I deal with, you know, anything until it works 100%. I can't sit here and say when both those things are done, it's going to be perfect because, you know, I'm relying on what I'm being told by these experts. So, you know, all I can say is to complete our end, so we can then say to the county, listen, we're 100% and we're still having issues. You're telling me it's your antennas. When's there going to be a push for it? We do bring it up at chief meetings, you know, so there is a push countywide at times to say, come on, you guys have sold this product. Again, they didn't literally, it doesn't cost anything right now, but that's if that helps, Dario.
No, it helps a little. I know it's a complex situation.
Listen, if we don't do it, you know, we're going to continue the way we are, and we're going to continue to try to troubleshoot it. I just think we might get to a point where the troubleshooting is, listen, like answer to the basement, I'm going to put a speaker down there. That'll take care of the basement. All right. But we don't need to communicate to the basement other than when an officer's down there, he needs to know, well, we need you. Where the hell are you? We can do that with a speaker, but I can't put speakers all over town, you know? So like, that's a point though. I'll take care of that. I'll take care of the little things I can take care of at minimal cost. I will. It's just, you know, if we don't do it, we'll continue to do what we're doing. We'll troubleshoot it. We'll try to make it work the best that we can. But again, communication just makes me very nervous. And you know, certainly Chief Caridi, even Jason and Sanders will tell you, you know, it's communications is our lifeline.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it, Chief. Thanks.
Sure.
Chief Caridi.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to try and we could probably spend the rest of the day trying to talk about the county communications and digital. The digital system, Bergen County, as far as the 21 counties go in the state, we're probably the most screwed up as far as if you look at a county as a whole, as far as communications. There are multiple counties, Burlington County, Camden County. I can go on, Morris County. They're all running digital systems. Their system is up and running. Bergen County is a little bit behind the 8 ball on that. The digital system does work. Case in point, everybody remembers last summer, we had that monstrous thunderstorm. We had major flooding in the south end of town. We were plucking people out of cars on Route 4. Oradell Fire Department had lent me one of their new digital portables so I can listen to them. I was on a portable standing at Total Wine and communicated to the Oradell boat that was leaving the Oradell firehouse. And we talked to each other like they were standing next to me. So it does work. It's the county is working to develop it, but, and again, it's something that, you know, we still need to maintain the old system as a backup. There's only so many departments that can go on the county system right now. You know, if you key a microphone on an old school portable radio, if Chief Walker is one of his officers, if they're using the old system and he's on Voorhees Avenue calling for help because a resident is attacking him on the old system, he's going to push that microphone button and somebody could be stepping over him and he doesn't even know if his message got out. The new system, when you go to push that portable or that radio, you'll actually get a beep or like a buzzing sound to tell you, hey, your signal's not going out. So there's advantages to it. And again, we could spend all day talking about this. But, you know, it's just something that it's going to be the wave of the future. Yeah, there's some bugs in the system. And we have to deal with it. As far as mutual aid in the county goes, that's the way the fire service is going in the county with mutual aid. You know, everybody remembers Marcal paper fire several years ago. That fire triggered this whole digital one frequency. So if River Edge ever goes to Elma Park again, or Patterson, Fort Lee, pick a town, the idea is to get all those responding companies on one digital channel with the county. So everything is coordinated, not 5 people talking on 5 different frequencies. So.
Thank you, Chief. Councilman Benson. Chief,
Thank
if you
you.
put your hand down, that would be good.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Police Chief Walker. Appreciate all the background. Quick question. So these 2 new units for 150,000, these are the digital ones that would go in the desk. Do I have that right?
Yes, so they are the last leg of the police department's communication upgrades. And then we would be 100%, and we would be saying, you know, as Chief Pretty said, they are ironing out the kinks. They tell me it's a big part of it is their antennas. So we would say, listen, we're 100% now, and it's supposed to, I'm being told, going to help us internally communicate better. Again, can I give that 100%? You know, because I'll tell you what, if I'm still having kinks, I'm sure they're going to say, you guys are great, you're all good to go. We just got to finish these antennas. I don't know. You know, I got to rely on what they tell me. I'm not a you know, radios are not my thing. And as I think Chief Pretty explained it a little more detail, because that is one of his you know, knowledgeable areas.
Thank you.
Councilman Canito.
Yeah, we're having 2 different discussions. The only question is, you know, what can we afford this year and what is absolutely necessary this year? And can you keep on going 1 year with what you got? That's really what we're concentrating. I'm not in any way even trying to debate whether digital or
Right.
Analog is better or anything like that. I have no knowledge of that. My purpose here is financial. Today I'm a numbers guy, which I
Sure.
And, you know, it's what can we get away with? You know, if we don't fund anything this year on this line of this $300,000 request, you know, are we in any way malfeasant or not? So that's my question, because again, we have a lot to consider here. So, but
Right.
I mean, I have no more questions. I think we've answered, you know, the main question here.
I think we've exhausted this subject. Certainly, if we have further questions, we'll bring it up at the next meeting. Chief, I know that we have another item that we need to talk about that's not capital related. I'd like to switch to that. Are you ready to speak to that issue?
Is that the
Yes.
shed?
No, that is the, you finished the item on your capital. That is the request for a new patrol officer.
Oh, yes. All right. I do have one more thing here quickly, Mayor. And it's a shed. And I
don't see it on the list.
No, because it's something that has come up, and I mentioned it to Chris as late as yesterday. And I also spoke to Lizette about it. Here's the thing with the shed. You know, we're going through accreditation. You have to jump through some hoops, and you have to have things very precise. An outdoor shed is needed for bulk evidence and the things we bring in. It's a specific shed. It needs 2 rooms. It needs double security.
How much is it?
It's $8,000. But Lizette pointed out a possibility that it could be part of the Borough Hall renovation. I'm going to say account.
Lizette, can you speak to that?
I'm just tossing that out there. It's not.
Sure. Lizette,
know.
can you speak to that?
I'm not sure if it would meet the bonding requirements, but we do have a balance from the first group of funding for Borough Hall renovations. And since it's in comparison to the scope of the project, a nominal amount, and accreditation is requiring this sooner rather than later to complete the process, instead of incurring new debt, if we could fund it on existing borrowing.
Chris, are you in agreement? I mean, Mr. Battaglia?
No objection to that.
All right, then, Lizette, is this something that we would not be in the 2023 budget, but we could authorize right now?
Just give the approval to use 2022 funding, so that way Chief can work on so firming up the quote and the cost, and then we'll just move forward with the purchasing.
So moved.
So it's been moved. Can I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. It's open for debate, comment, or question. Is there debate, comment, or question? From the council only. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, any abstention? Hearing none, it is so moved. Okay,
Thank you.
Chief, let's, Lizette, why don't you actually, why don't you introduce the topic?
Yes, with the known retirement happening in the summer, there is the need to fill a vacancy and to start the process. According to the borough code, the governing body has to adopt a resolution indicating that there is a vacancy, and the chief is authorized to move forward with filling the vacancy. But instead of just throwing in a resolution for the next meeting, we need confirmation that that such a vacancy exists and that I am authorized to draft that resolution.
Chief, if you could speak to it briefly.
Sure. So since I've been chief, I've had a few officers retire. The last two I have not replaced. Okay, and I was able to do that in my 5-year plan. It addresses, how I'm able to do that. This officer that's retiring August 1st will affect manpower. It'll create a shortage in patrol. So now I'm at a point where that he needs to be replaced. So that's a simple.
Good, thank you, Chief. Any member of council wish to ask a question or make a comment? Councilwoman Kinsella.
Thanks, Mayor. Chief, this doesn't affect much since you're replacing him in terms of salary, correct?
It decreases quite a bit, but I know I'm not going to get into. Chris is the wizard with how to deal with salaries, but from a simple chief's look at it, I'm getting rid of an old dog that's a top scale, and I'm getting a puppy that doesn't cost nearly as much. But again, that Chris works the numbers on that, and I know he has a different calculation to make sure we're in the right place with that.
Mr. Battaglia, if you could speak to it briefly.
Yeah, very, very briefly, this this draft of the budget does consider the retiree in there for the full year. So you have a retiree effective August 1st. They'll have certain payments that are due to them at retirement. There will be leftover funding, probably 2 months or so of salary by the time you go through the hiring process, get somebody on board. You're only going to be paying them for a part of the year at the lowest salary on the scale. So for this year that'll cover it, and then you'll actually see savings in next year's budget because we will no longer be budgeting the higher salary. You'll only be budgeting the newer officer salary.
Okay.
Thank you.
We can enter into debate after we move in second. Could I have a motion to allow the chief to post for a new patrol officer?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, is now open for debate, comment, or inquiry. Council President Kaufman.
I just had a question. So he's retiring in August and you're going to advertise it for it now?
So this is a process, remember,
Right.
and what we're looking to do is the traditional. We have two different methods per ordinance on how to go about hiring. We're specifically this time around looking to send somebody to the academy.
Right.
The academy starts in July, and the officer would be out in December. So, a big part of officer replacement is to attempt to replace them as quickly as one leaves, because once they leave, if there's a hole, that's where overtime starts to occur. So, that's what I'm trying to make that as tight as I can. We have the commitment from the officer that's retiring. And if we get this officer through this process and we have to really move, that's why we're putting it in today. Because we have to move to get the process done with all the testing and everything to get this individual into the July class.
Thank you.
Sure.
Councilwoman Monsanto Cohen.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. So you said that 2 are retiring, replacing 1, and I heard you say that it will we will have a 1 man down, but by replacing it with 1, we will be okay, fully equipped.
No, so since I've been chief, 2 officers retired prior to this one, retired. I didn't replace them. Those 2 officers those 2 slots are gone. This officer would be the 3rd officer retiring since I've been chief, and I have to replace him because it's now it's taking away from my patrol. It's making a squad short. The 2 officers that retired that I'm not replacing, again, I have a 5-year plan on how I'm addressing to make sure that I'm still taking care of business, if you would, in town.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other member of council and only council who'd like to ask a question, make a comment, or? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilman Kanigo,
Yes.
Council President Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Monsanto Cohen,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mallory,
Yes.
Councilman Benson,
Yes.
All right, Chief and Lizette, we can now move forward with that. Chief, I know you have somewhere else to go. Is there anything you want to say before we wrap up the police portion of today's meeting?
Just thank you for everyone, and obviously appreciate the work you guys put into this. It's great that we have the ability to put this together, and the good questions. I think you guys come up with great questions. Hopefully I answered them the best that I could. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, we now have Office of Emergency Management. And I assume we have retired Chief Sanders. Is he here?
Mayor, it's been about an hour and a half. Should we take a 5-minute break?
Absolutely, it's a good idea. Without objection, we'll take a 5-minute break. Is there objection? All right, let us return in 5 minutes. All right. Since it was not a formal adjournment, I do not believe that we need to do a roll call. Ann, are you in agreement or not? Good. All right. Former Chief Bill Sanders, Lizette, if you're good, we're just going to turn it up. Oh, wait, hold on. Lizette, if you're good, we're just going to turn it over to the chief.
Of course.
Former Chief Sanders, our OEM director. Go ahead.
Good morning.
Morning.
As you see, I'm not asking for a lot. Knowing what we were going into for this year, I scaled things back, and being new into this position, I really didn't know where we stood looking into the future. Next year's 5-year plan will be more precise, but as of now, these are the only things I was looking to purchase, at least for the next 2 years. The Motorola tri-band radios, 12,000 was approved last year. I believe it was back in June. This 12,000 that I asked for is to complete the money that was at former OEM coordinator Stu Hansinger asked for was not enough to complete the whole process. That's why I'm asking for another 12. This will give us interoperability with the county OEM, New Milford, Ordell, and Paramus's OEM systems also. Any questions for this?
A member of the committee or the council would like to ask a question about the first item. Councilwoman Monsanto Cohen.
Thank you. Good morning, Chief. Just quick two questions. Well, one question. How many radios are we getting for the 12 that you are trying to account for?
We're gonna get 2 of the tri-bands, and we're gonna get 4 to 6 lower band radios. This way we can have for major events, as in the run, 4th of July, River Edge Day. This way it could be used by the outside agencies.
So 6 in total.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Is there a member of the committee or the council who would like to speak? Chief, from the previous purchase of 2022, what did we get from them?
I did not use any of that 12,000 that was appropriate.
Okay, so this, so no purchases have been made yet.
That's correct.
All right, Chief, Councilman Montesano, your hand's still up. Do you have a follow-up question? No?
I do not. I apologize.
No worries, no worries. Just didn't want to pass you by. All right, Chief, if you could speak to the necessity of the solar sign board.
The solar signboard came into light last year when we had the emergency road repair on Valley. I had to go to the county and ask for 2 of them. I was lucky that we got one right off the bat, and we had to wait until after a weekend. I believe it was in Leonia. They had a couple that we were going to be able to get. So if we had if we had 2, we could use them for any emergencies or future road closures. I do know PD has one, so with the another one, we could bring us up to speed, and this way I wouldn't have to use count on the county for any future equipment if needed right away.
All right, any member of council wish to make a comment or ask a question in regards to the solar sign board? Councilman Kanigo, and then Council President Kaufman after that.
The 20,000 is for one sign?
It's actually 40. It's 20 this year, 20 next year.
20 this year, 20 next year. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Council President Kaufman.
Just wondering, can we use county signs or regular non-lit signs when we need to?
Yes, I have to go. We could use the county signboards if we need to. It's just the availability. I mean, sometimes it took about a week and a half to get the 2 signboards from the county last time. Thankfully, we didn't need them right away, but it did take about a week and a half. And so if we actually had an emergency road closure, we may have to wait, especially during the summer season where the boards are being requested quite frequently.
Can we just use something else to close the road, like a regular horse or something?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking that we used 2 of them last year for the closure of Valley Road. This way the residents knew in the future that the road was going to be closed for repair for the month that it was done.
Councilman Kanigo.
No, I was remiss. I didn't lower my hand. I apologize.
No worries, no worries. Anything else? Chief, I'd just like to go back to the Motorola tri-band radios. You do have radios that you're currently using at this time, right?
Yeah, those radios are probably from I'm going to say early 90s.
Okay, but they're still functioning.
Yes, they're actually using the lower band. I don't know how well they work, but they work as of now.
All right. Chief, if you go on to the Chevy Tahoe or equivalent.
Yes, so speaking with other OEM coordinators that I know and have met over the past 6 months that I've been in this position, they do have vehicles that they use for equipment when they need to bring them to residents during storms, to use for personnel transport. So this is a 2-year appropriation, 30 and 30. It could be used to assist the fire department with the boats. It could be used to bring generators to residences. It could be used to move residents from one area to another to get flood-prone areas. As you know, we did have the old A1 vehicle, which was an expedition that we used, and that has gone to the wayside. So that's really no longer in use. This would also free up any of the fire department vehicles or the police SUVs to do other emergencies, use it for other emergency services.
Okay, any questions, Councilwoman Kinsella?
Thanks, Mayor. Just a quick question, Chief. This is not an absolute necessity this year, correct?
That's correct. That's why it's used for it's a two-year appropriation. I would also like to say that if there was a vehicle that the police or the fire department weren't using in the future, that could actually be reappropriated as a OEM vehicle.
Okay, thanks, Chief.
Any other member of council or committee? All right, Chief Sanders, thank you for being our coordinator. Is there anything you want to say before we send you off?
Thank you for the opportunity, and I wish everybody a good weekend.
Excellent, excellent.
You too. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Fire Department, current Chief, Greg Critty.
1 second, I'm pulling up the slide. There we go. Okay. Okay, there you are.
You have the floor.
Good morning, everyone. I guess we'll kick this right off. The first thing that you see on there is the $33,000. That can probably be dropped down to 30,000. Just checking with the vendor, the radios didn't go up, so that could go down to 30,000. And basically what that is to carry on our conversation from Chief Walker's presentation, that is to equip our current ladder truck, engine 2 and engine 3, each with a tri-band mobile radio. I don't think we need to get into the whole digital trunking thing. I think we kind of beat that up enough earlier.
No, I definitely want to hear that again.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
sure. I could keep going on. And then everybody's going to hate me. So that would be so that all of our vehicles will then have that capability. And as I explained earlier, that is a big deal, especially on the fire side. The fire service is different than the police service in the county, where we're doing a lot more mutual aid, and we're responding out of our town a lot more. So this is the county, looking to coordinate that better. So that would allow our apparatus to communicate not only with the county when responding on mutual aid, but it would also allow us to communicate with the police department. So that would take care of the 3 vehicles. The new rescue pumper coming in May or June. That radio was purchased with rescue pumper funds. That tri-band radio is already sitting at the vendor in Paramus. So that would be that first request.
Questions from the council or the committee? Seeing none, Chief, I'm just going to ask you to reiterate. You said not 33, but 30?
That is correct.
Thank you, Chief. Feel free to move on.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. The next one is the turnout gear. As you know, we've been replacing our turnout gear. The National Fire Protection Association has set standards that turnout gear should not be more than 10 years old. We can't even send our members to the fire academy for training with gear that's older than maybe 11 years old. They start rejecting the gear when it's 12 or 13 years old. This will continue that replacement process. Right now, to equip using current pricing, as we're sitting here this morning, to fully outfit a firefighter with turnout gear, and this isn't just in River Edge, but this is pretty much in the state, is $4,215. That includes the bunker pants, coat, helmet, boots, and gloves. It doesn't even include the Nomex hood, but that's probably another $80. So we'd be looking to buy 9 sets of gear. Right now, we have firefighters, as you saw. We've had an increase in applicants, which is a great thing for our fire department and for the town. So right now, we have some new members that are wearing, say, my old coat with, former Chief Sanders bunker pants, and we can't have that. There was an incident in an East Bergen fire department several years ago where there was a fire, resulted in the fatalities of 2 civilians and an injury to a couple of firefighters. The state came in and found that those firefighters were doing just that. They were wearing gear that wasn't properly sized for them, and they had to be removed from service. So that would complete our turnout gear purchase.
Any questions from council or committee? Councilwoman Monsanto Cohen.
Hi, Chief.
Good morning.
So you said that this turnout gear, you were purchasing 9. Did I hear that correct?
Right. It would be, so if we get the full request of 40,000, 9 sets of turnout gear comes out to about 37,920 figure. So even if we drop that to 38,000 instead of 40, we'd probably still be okay.
So we could do that.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And could you explain why in the 5-year 45, 50, 55, is it because we expect more volunteers or more, what is the reasoning behind that?
That's a combination of that, plus also what's more driving that is the increase in turnout gear prices. So that's just a anticipated, I can't tell you sitting in my chair what a set of turnout gear is going to cost in 2025. I have no idea.
Yeah.
So hopefully this craziness with price increases that we're all experiencing, even at the grocery store, will hopefully come to an end or slow down by then.
Yeah. And one last question, if I may. Sure. So what happens with the old turnout gear? What do we do with that?
So the old turnout gear, what we do is we put that in spare gear. And that's where I alluded to earlier. Some of the newer members are wearing that old gear until we can get new gear. And Councilwoman Cohen, you brought up a good point. We ordered turnout gear. I believe you guys gave us money for turnout gear last year. You gave us 40,000. We ordered that turnout gear in May of last year. That turnout gear was just put in service a week and a half ago. We just got it a week and a half ago. So we have to anticipate that. If you say, yes, Chief, you're going to get your gear, we try and order that as soon as possible, because that's probably going to happen again.
Understood. Thank you.
Before I go to Councilman Canigo, Chris, Mr. Bagdaglia, I want to make sure that as we go along, that changes are being made to the 2023 General Capital Ordinance Summary. I want to make sure that the former chief said the fingerprint machine was 24,200 instead of 23. And I'm hoping that you're updating as we go along. The current chief is telling us that the turnout gear can be rebudgeted if the council approves it at 38K. So, and also that the
I would ask that we keep that one to 40K for now, and I had some questions and before we move it down.
So we're not going to do a running. What we'll do is then, Councilman, what I'll do is at the end of each of the presentations, I'll ask the council if they want to adjust the numbers without necessarily intending to approve, but simply adjust for accounting purposes. Would that be good, Councilman?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, it piggybacks into what my question / comment was going to be. So,
Yeah, adjusting the numbers does not mean we're approving the numbers. It's
Yeah.
just keeping the record accurate.
Yeah.
So Chris, if you could keep the record accurate for the police department by increasing the request in your spreadsheet. And when we get done with the fire vehicle and equipment or the fire department's budget, we'll not that we're approving it, but simply we'll correct for accuracy. Councilman Kinigo.
yeah, just look, a comment. We have a fantastic volunteer fire department, an unpaid fire department. Turnout gear is something that we should not be skimping on. If he needs 40,000, let's give him the 40,000 and let's move on to other things that we can cut back. But that kind of equipment is important, and the chief should get what he asked for on this one.
Council President Kaufman. You're muted.
Sorry about that. Just a quick question. Last year's 5-year plan had the outgoing years for turnout gear at 30,000 a year. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, and that was based on buying less gear and not having a big increase, but we've had an increase, and I guess we have a good problem that we had more members, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Councilman, can you go? I think your hand is up by accident, or do you need, okay, do you want me to come back to you? No. Okay, any other member of council or committee? Okay, Chief, feel free to move on.
The next item, Mayor, thank you, is we have the programming of portable radios for the county borough digital. So again, not to beat a dead horse, so every riding position on every fire truck in the borough has a brand new portable radio. That was a program that you guys, as the council, graciously allowed us to do to get rid of our old 20-plus-year-old portable radios. That was over the last 4 or 5 years, I believe, we were able to get those radios. Now comes the time where when those radios were purchased, this whole county digital thing really wasn't that popular or going to take off as it has. So what you're looking at there is a request from me to program 5 of the newer portable radios to have the digital and trunking capability. And you're seeing 20 grand there. It's $3,800 per radio to do that. So the 5 portable radios that would be getting programmed would be the 3 chiefs and the 2 captains. And then you see for 24, 16,000, that would complete the rest of the officers. We're not programming every brand new portable for county digital trunking. A lot of other fire departments have done that, and they've said to me that was a big mistake and a waste of money. So that is what that $20,000 would be for.
Question from council or committee? Council President Kaufman.
Do you need to do those? What?
Well, I think at a minimum, and again, I get this year's budget crisis. I think at a minimum, we should at least do the 3 chiefs portables. So that if we're mobile, operating at a scene, we don't have to be tied to the car. Because right now that's what we have to do. If we're going, if we're going to a mutual aid incident, and I'll bring up Elmwood Park because everybody remembers Marcal Fire, we would have to be tied to the car. At least if we did the 3 chiefs, we could be mobile and still have communications with the county and the mutual aid town. I would like to do the 2 captains because there's sometimes, very rare, but there's sometimes the 3 chiefs are not around. So I hope that answered your question, Council President.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other member from committee or council? Chief, we're good.
Thank you. The next one, I have good news. That can come off the list. The battery operated smoke ejector for $3,800. We had some remaining funds for the new rescue pumper, so that was purchased out of that. It was actually purchased for $200 less than that. So that's a win-win.
I don't think there'll be any questions on that. Go ahead, Chief.
Yeah, I don't think so. I didn't anticipate any. The next one are the pagers again. So the pagers and the turnout gear are kind of intertwined in the fact that we have new members. And in my initial packet to the borough administrator, I gave everybody a brochure on the pagers that we buy. They're the Motorola Minute or 6s. They are the last vestige of the Motorola pagers. From what I understand, Motorola will not be coming out with a Minute or 7. That this is going to be it. So, so we need new pagers for members as they come in. So that money that you see there should allow us to buy about 8 pagers. And then we should be good. You see a little bit of a decreased number for 24. That number, could go down even less or even 0, depending on, membership. So basically membership is driving that number and the quantity of pagers that we need, and also the older pagers that we're replacing.
Questions, Council President?
Just a quick one. So how long do you think those pagers will last for? And once they do die out, if Motorola's not making them anymore, will you have to start using your phones?
So those pagers, and our guys take good care of their pagers because we make them realize that they're expensive and they're borough property. We have some pagers that are, these pagers should last us at least 5 to 6 years. And then, Motorola has just said that, they're not going to make a Minute or 7, but they haven't said that they're not, they're not going to stop making that pager. So I don't think we have to worry about that. Using the phones, everybody knows modern technology. There's times where we'll get a fire call now and it won't come across the phone till I'm in the Chief's car riding up the street, and then my phone will ping. So that's, the pagers are a sure thing. And the sirens, but we won't get into that.
Yes,
So.
let's not go there, Chief. Any other questions or comments? All right, Chief?
Actually, I'm sorry, Mayor.
Councilman.
Chief, is this a number that we can kick over to next year?
Can you give me half? And even if I get a few,
I'm okay if we can cut it down any number. So yeah, so let's cut it down to 3 then.
Yeah, right now, Councilman, can you go? Right now, we're looking at about $7.25 a pager, roughly. And I would have to get an updated pricing. So, even if we use,
how about we fund 4 pagers? How about we fund 4 pagers? You said you need 8. We fund half of them for this year. We kick the rest over to next year.
Yeah, that would be about $3,000.
Good.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll do a tally at the end to make sure that Chris knows what the council is looking to for accuracy. Go ahead, Chief.
The next item is hose. As you know, you guys gave us some money last year for hose. Again, hose is more of a safety item, coupled with the turnout gear. You guys, all of you, I think almost all of you have been in both firehouses. You might see, oh wow, there's a lot of hose sitting on the rack. Some of the hose sitting at the rack at Company 1, the North Firehouse, was purchased in 1984. I think I just got on the fire department in 84. So last year, our hose testing company, we get it tested annually. Last year, our hose testing company didn't even test it. They said, we're not even taking it off the rack because it shouldn't even be in the firehouse. So this would probably be, as you can see, the last year for a while that we get hose. And just to give you an example, we use different diameter hoses. We use 1 3/4 hose. That's the hose that you see stretched into the building for fire attack. We use 2.5-inch diameter hose for a fire in a commercial building or a big fire. If we get a house that's fully involved, we might use that. And all of you have seen on the back of it, you've come to drills and fire calls, you'll see our big, red supply line laying in the street that we hook to the hydrant. One 100-foot length of that supply line is $990. We carry 1,000 feet on each pumper. So that's 10 lengths per pumper that we carry. A length of 2.5-inch hose, a 50-foot length of 2.5-inch hose, and these are pretty current prices, is $325 a length. So we need the money to get some of that old outdated hose out, especially since the hose testing company refuses to test the older hose that is past the National Fire Protection Association recommended life expectancy, which I believe is 15 years.
Question or comment from committee or council? Councilman Kaniga.
Anytime I see a blank space for next year, I'm gonna ask, can we do half and half?
Yeah, I mean, if we can do half, even if we can negotiate, and if you can give me 8 this year, and then we'll just, replace with what we can. A lot of the hoses on state contract, Councilman Kanigo, so we are getting a pretty good price per length. So yeah, I mean, if I can get 8, and we'll just replace what we can.
So that would be 7,500.
8. He wants 8. 8,000.
He wants 8,000. Okay.
If we could.
All right. Any other comment? All right, let's move on.
Okay, the next one, the ladder truck. So we all know that that's a major capital purchase. If you look at my capital request sheet and you look all the way to the far column on the right, I have listed there, it's kind of dull ink, but it's $2 million. Right now, the ladder truck, and all of you should have received the information packet when I originally sent in my budget request. The ladder truck in 2028 will be 25 years old. We've historically replaced our ladder trucks. If you go back, even when the town replaced the 56 ladder truck, they were replaced between 20 and 25 years old. At the rate of increase with fire apparatus, if we were to buy this ladder truck now, like if you said, hey, what would it cost today? You're probably talking 1.5 million, roughly today. So in anticipation of that, and you see I kicked it up to 2026 to actually purchase it, with industry lead times of 20 to 24 months right now, even 30 months. Hopefully in 2026 that'll come down, but none of us know that. I know it's taken a long time to get everything, garbage trucks, everything. So this was my attempt to try and ease that burden in 2026. And just, again, try and ease that last year of capital. So it's something that we're going to have to do. I know we're not going to get the whole amount. It was wishful, but I just wanted to get that on everybody's radar that this is coming up, and it's going to be a big purchase. In 2027, the emissions are changing for EPA, and Cummins Motor Company is the biggest motor company and supplier of fire trucks in the country. And they announced early in February that 2 of their most popular model motors are going away, and they're coming out with a new fuel agnostic motor. And if you want to look it up, it's just Google Cummins X10, and you will see all the information out there. That just the motor increase alone, you're probably talking $50,000 plus over what motors are available now. So that's where we're at. Again, I understand budget's tight. I really do. I'm a taxpayer, so I get it. I don't like to see my tax bill go up as much as everybody else, but I just wanted to get this on the radar. If we can put something away for the ladder truck, just to start doing that, I think that would be beneficial.
Councilman Kanigo.
I won't speak at length. I spoke to the chief about this when we met about the budget to prepare. I think we should put about 100,000 away if we can afford it, because it's going to be an expense that's coming up. but we've got very tight budget this year. So, but we need to account something for it. So I think we should drop that number from 350 to 100.
All right. Any other member of council? Councilwoman Kinsella.
Just a quick question, Chief. So you're saying right now the value for the truck would be 1.2, and you're just trying to put away as much as you can for that 2026 purchase?
Well, so if the council and the citizens budget committee said, let's buy the ladder truck right now, what would it cost us? Right now, if we bought it this year, you're probably talking $1.5 million. If we bought it this year. The 2 million stab in the dark, throwing a dart at the dartboard is just that for 2026. So.
Okay, thanks, Chief. I just wanted clarification.
Mr. Roman.
Chief, can you maybe address a little bit the functionality of the truck at the present time? And, are there problems with it? Do you see equipment being needed to be replaced or renovated or work done? And as a follow-up to that, if that vehicle goes down, what are the contingency plans?
So that's a great question, Al. So right now, the truck is currently 20 years old. We just recently had to replace all of the power steering lines on the truck. I haven't gotten that bill yet because they were weeping. There are some rust pockets on the frame rails. We just had the accident damage replaced, taken care of. So overall, the truck, we try and maintain it. We try and stay on top of it. It's going out for its annual preventive maintenance during the summer of this year. You never know what they're going to find. The aerial device is going to be tested this year. And again, you hope that it passes its test. So again, it's 20 years old. As far as the actual equipment on the truck, we're in very good shape with that. So this would just be, the truck itself, fire equipment wise, we're in pretty good shape there. As far as a backup contingency plan, if the ladder truck is to go down, we currently right now, if the ladder truck is out, we put New Milford or Oradell on standby for their ladder truck. So like when the ladder truck is down for its PM, any calls in River Edge would be triggered to respond to ladder truck from either New Milford or Oradell.
All right, so all three towns that normally respond to mutual aid have a ladder truck.
That is correct.
Okay. All right, good, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Benson.
Thank you, Chief. So in terms of the ladder truck, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that next year this ladder truck would go down, and to service it would be just so expensive. We would need to buy a new one. Is that?
I mean, anything can happen. It could be going down Kindercamack Road and somebody run the red light at Main Street and T-bone it. Anything can happen. Again, it's a 20-year-old vehicle. And one thing the fire department, we kind of stick our chest out is that, we take great care of our fire trucks. We really do. We're getting rid of the rescue pumpers, replacing a 1989 vehicle and a 1995 vehicle that should have been replaced a long time ago. The downside to that is the longer you keep them, they're worth a lot less. So, typically in the fire service, the age cutoff is about 25 years. So, the hope is that we maybe replace the ladder truck a little bit sooner and maybe get some decent trade-in value for it. But yeah, I mean, anything could happen. We could go on a call tonight, Councilman, and we throw a rod in the motor. That motor in that truck is a Series 60 motor by Detroit Diesel. They don't make that motor anymore. So anything could happen.
Thank you.
Any other member of council or committee? Seeing none, Chief? Oh, Councilman Benson.
Yeah, I just want to make one comment, and it goes back to Councilman Canigo's comment. I'm not sure I necessarily agree with putting any of this money off to next year, given that it's such an old truck. I mean, it could go out tomorrow or the next day. So I think it'd be more prudent to kind of build the money up as the chief has here.
Okay. Mr. Ruhlman.
Maybe just to re-echo Mr. Barnes' comment here, I think that the chief has laid out a plan to operate this vehicle or replace this vehicle for, within a reasonable amount of time, or maybe not totally reasonable, but at least he's working on the idea of preparing. And although I don't like to spend the money either, I think that pushing too much of this off may be more of a problem than biting the bullet now. The other problem is that with a 25-year-old vehicle, we may not be able to replace it, or the cost of replacing broken machinery may be more of a problem as we go forward. So I think it's something that the council has to seriously think about and decide as to how they want to prepare for this expenditure in 4 or 5 years. I like the idea of budgeting for it. I think that's a great idea. All right, thank you.
Anyone else from council or committee? Okay, chief. Oh, wait, Mr. Bagtaglia.
One quick thought or question for the chief is
Go easy on me, Chris.
no, this should be an easy one. Does the vehicle have any resale or trade-in value today, and was that going to depreciate materially over the next couple of years?
So one thing that goes up, we all know price of fire trucks go up. In the past 2 years, across the country and in the fire apparatus industry, an old average price increase for a fire truck per year was 2%, 3%. Over the past 2.5 years, the price of fire trucks have gone up 25%. The used truck market, the price of the used truck as the truck gets older drops off more. So, and especially with the fire apparatus industry in a minimum 2.5 to 3 year rough delivery period, Chris, we could probably get some decent money for the ladder truck now if we traded it in, only because of the way that truck was designed, has a pump on it, has a tank on it. So we could probably get some good money for it now. I'm not saying we're going to get 400,000. I don't want the council and the budget committee to think, oh, wow, we're sitting on a gold mine here. But you would definitely get more money for it now, far more money now than you would in 2 years, let alone 5 years from now. So yeah, it's
something to consider, as we're looking at the purchase of, whether we, have a truck that we can trade in. And I see a little bit, maybe not as common, because you don't see these things turn over too frequently. But, if you go to a rural town in Pennsylvania that doesn't have high rises and not as densely populated, they might find a lot more value in that truck than what we would get even trading in. So selling it to other municipal agencies, not necessarily New Jersey, we might be able to recoup some of the funds to put towards the new purchase.
The town would definitely.
Well, this is a good conversation, but remember, we're doing an initial conversation. We're not making any decisions today. I think absolutely this should be thought of over the next week or so. And at our next meeting, we could pick up with this. But I unless I'm wrong, I don't think the council is looking to make decisions about the capital budget in peace. I think what the council's, it was the will of the council that we'd look at the whole thing, and then we'd come back at the next meeting and then start making cuts as needed. I'm not trying to cut you off. I'm just saying we have 4 hours today and we already used 2 hours and 20 minutes of it. So, Chief, finish your thought, but we do.
Yeah, no, my last thought, Mayor, was to answer Chris's question, and we'll end it with this: is that I think the town could get far more money selling the ladder truck on like Municipal or Gov Deals than trading it in. and I'll just end that discussion with that.
All right, excellent. And Chris, thank you for asking that inquiry question, that probing question. I think that was good for the council to hear. Chief, last item, I think.
Yep, the last item, as you see there, our iPads, all of the apparatus have iPads. Under Chief Sanders, when he was in his last year as chief in 21, we actually had to emergency replace one of the iPads on the ladder truck because it was so old and outdated that the battery actually started expanding and actually separated the case. So we're looking to replace the iPads in all the vehicles, and we use the iPads for, while the companies are en route to the scene, we use an app called, drawing a blank here, we use an app called Active Alert. So while they're en route to the scene, they could punch the address will come up, and it'll show them where all the hydrants are. It'll show them any houses where there's solar panels, there's lightweight truss, there's somebody on oxygen. So these are a vital part of our response and our pre-planning. We have building information in there. We have pictures of buildings in there. We have overhead shots of buildings in there. In speaking with Councilman Caningo and talking with ex-Chief Sanders, who works for Holy Name Hospital, Chief Sanders says Holy Name has been using very successfully the Chromebooks. So I think if we go with the Chromebooks, we might be able to drop that money down a little bit and still accomplish what we need to do. I'm guessing if we could drop that down to $4,000.
Okay.
And if anybody on the panel has experience with Chromebooks, just feel free to chime in. So
we use them in school. They're very reliable if you get the right processor in it.
And these would be in the fire truck. So
yeah. Councilwoman Monsanto Cohen.
Thank you. So Chief, if we go with the Chromebooks, which I'm familiar to as well, that will still be 6?
Well, I haven't looked at the Chromebook prices. That's why I say if anybody's familiar, jump in. I think we might maybe get 4 of them.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with the Chromebook prices. I would yield to some of my technical people on the fire department to help me out with that.
They're generally a little bit, I mean, you can generally do better than the Apple products when you go to the Chromebook products.
For sure.
So
for sure.
you'll definitely cut that down. That's not a question. If you go from iPad to Chromebook, there's not a
For
question.
sure. Yeah.
So if we could do 4,000 and
Okay.
just we'll get what we can.
Former Chief Bill Sanders.
I believe there were surfaces that we were talking about.
Oh, Surface Pro, I'm sorry.
Yes.
All right. Anything else? Former Chief Sanders? No? Okay. Anybody else? Question or comment? All right. So go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mayor. I just have one thing that if you look down at the next below the iPads, you see ventilation chainsaws.
Yes,
And you
I
see
see
that,
for
and you see
2024.
that's right. We just, each truck has a ventilation chainsaw. They're old, and between the 3 saws, 3 of them went down, and we spent over the past 7 months $1,100 repairing them. The cost of a new saw is about $2,000,
Are you saying you want to
$2,200.
move one into this year?
If that's would be acceptable, if we can move one of them
Well,
into
right now,
this year.
Chief, what we're doing is we're getting a sense of your budget. So if you're saying, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, modifying the budget. So is there any before we do that, why don't we talk about modifying the budget for accuracy, not for approval? So the chief has said that he'd like to modify his mobile radio replacement from 33 to 30. Is there objection to modifying it for accuracy? Hearing none, Chris, can you make that change? Chief has also said that he could modify his budget for turnout gear and related equipment from 40 to 38. There was an objection to that. Is there still an objection?
It's up to the chief. Chief, if you want the 40, I'm fully in support of the 40. If you want 38, I'm fully in support of 38. Your call.
I mean, the 40 will give us a little wiggle room if something has jumped up in price. I'll leave it up to you guys.
I would stay with the 40 for today, and then we can always revisit it before the final meeting.
All right, is there objection to leaving it at 40? Hearing none, we'll do so. The chief talked about programming radios, and I believe, Chief, you wanted it to stay at 20, correct?
If we can, yes, Mayor.
Okay. The chief then made clear to us that the battery operated smoke ejector is no longer a necessary item or needed item on his capital. So Chris, can you remove the 3,800 that is listed for battery operated smoke detector? Next, for pagers, the chief has made a very thoughtful suggestion that we could drop from 6 to 3 for 2023 and increase from 5 to 8 for 2024. Chief, are you still comfortable with that correction for accuracy?
I am, yes, Mayor.
Is there objection to reducing the pager from 6 to 3K and in 2024 increasing it from 5 to 8K? Hearing none, it is so moved. We're going to skip the ladder truck for a minute and we're going to come back to it.
You have hose, Mayor.
What?
We were
The
gonna cut
hose
the
line?
hose to 8 and move 7 to next year.
Yeah, no, that's where, oh, I skipped the hose, my bad. Yes, I apologize. So we were, is there objection to reducing the 15K to 8K for this year and putting 7K into the following year? Hearing none, Chris, can you make that change? We're gonna skip the ladder truck for a minute. We're gonna go to the replacement 6 iPads for vehicles. Chief, are you saying that we could reduce that number from 6 to 4 and you would be relatively comfortable with that?
I believe so, Mayor. We'll make it work. If we'll get as many as we can.
Is there objection of reducing the chief's budget from 6,000 to 4,000 for replacement of 6 iPads? Hearing none, Chris, can you make that change? The chief is asking for us to take ventilator chainsaws from 0 to 2K and on 2024 taking it from 8 to 6. Chief, are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, that should work, Mayor.
Is there objection from the council to making this accounting change for accuracy? Okay, we're not saying that, and then let's go back to the ladder truck. The chief has asked no, because that would actually not be a chief recommendation, but a council recommendation. So changing the ladder truck would be something we'd speak about at the next meeting if the council wanted to reduce or remove. And that would be for both the police department, the OEM department, the fire department, the DPW, and all other capital things we would consider cutting or reducing at the next meeting, so that we remain consistent for all the departments. So we're going to leave it at 350. There has been a suggestion we reduce it to 100K, but that suggestion would be germane, would be appropriate for the next meeting. So if there's no objection, I'm going to let the chief give closing remarks. Is there an objection for question or for comment? Seeing none, Chief, you have the floor for the final time.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just want to thank the members of the council and the Citizens Budget Committee. As a taxpayer, I know it's not easy what you're doing. And as you know, whenever the fire department submits a budget request, it is the absolute thing that we need. There's no nice to haves, there's no wish eyes, there's nothing on here. And for the residents that are watching this or going to watch it, this is quite a process. And the mayor and council and the Citizens Budget Committee and all your department heads work very hard to ask for what is absolutely needed and no fluff. And I just want to thank you guys for this opportunity and have a good day.
Thank you, Chief. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Are
Thanks,
we
Chief.
good? Are we good to move on? Does anybody need a 2-minute break? Seeing none, we will move on to the Department of Public Works. Superintendent Melito, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chief. Thanks for hearing us out today. I appreciate it. And I'd like to go over the budget a little bit and a little bit of the changes from last year's budget to this year's budget and why before we start. At the last.
Sorry, 1 second. I'm just trying to get the the document up there.
Where is the 5-year plan on the book? I don't see it.
It's at the back of the DPW.
Yeah, see it. Well, I'll depend on what you put on the screen.
1 second. There we go. Do you see it now?
I
No,
don't see anything on the screen.
Oh, okay. 1 second. One second.
there you go.
Okay, Superintendent Melito.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I just want to go over a little bit of the changes from last year and the last 2 years to this year and a little bit of the why. Because there is a dramatic changes. At about a month ago, PSE&G has come to us about the high pressure lines going through town. They have split this town into 4 areas. With doing so, they will be working from Howland to Manning this year. What I decided to do was suspend the road program for this year due to the infrastructure that I believe should be replaced before in the area that they're working on that the borough is responsible for. So that's continuing the drainage to solve that on the Fenway courts and do the ADA ramps throughout that area. And of course, the borough-owned sidewalks. So as we go through this a little bit, that's the biggest changes. I will explain more when we get onto those areas. So starting out first is vehicles. I don't know if you have the other slide that breaks down the vehicles. Because each behind there's like slides that break down each thing. Is that going to be too hard?
Maybe Chris should share for that. I'll stop sharing. Chris, do you have that?
Yes, I'll pull that up now.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, there you go. So in looking at the replacement of vehicles, in the last couple of years, Chief Caridi has hit on it. The outlook for vehicles has changed, where it used to be 6 to 8 months to receive a specialized vehicle. It is now taking anywhere from 24 to 36 months, depending on the chassis plus the cab and the chassis and the body maker. So I had to readjust my garbage truck outlook. Last year they were supposed to be started to be purchased. I had to move them up this year. These garbage trucks are 16 years old. The bodies are rotted. These trucks do plowing, obviously recycling, and leaf collection 3 months out of the year. We do have 3 of them. They're all in the same realm. They were purchased all at the same time within 2007, 2008. So if we ordered them this June, they wouldn't arrive to 26. So we're looking almost out 20 years on these garbage trucks, and they are falling apart, rusting, and are really unreliable. The Z Master that's up there, it's actually a 2007, so it's actually 15 years old. This is one of the mowers that pretty much mows all the grass throughout town. They do have stator motors. It's starting to get a little expensive to replace these stator motors and a lot of the rot that's in the mower decks themselves. The last thing is a billy goat blower. This is going to replace a 1997 blower that we have for the parks. This is always used during the leaf season and is definitely showing a lot of wear and tear, and the motor's ready to go on it as we speak. So those are the 3 items I'm looking to replace. As you can see, there's garbage trucks for the next 3 years. So this is something that's going to keep increasing. I just want everybody to know the prices on these are increasing about 10% a year. Replacing these they're very crucial to our task here in River Edge. They're probably one of the most used vehicles for the DPW. So that will be the bulk of my replacement for the next three. Any
Any member of council or committee who'd like to ask a question or make a comment? Superintendent, you may move on.
Thank you, Mayor. We can go to roads. Again, roads I put off for 2023. Right now, I cannot get you a road. I do not have a road program put together due to I have to see where PSG starts, ends, how far they get, because this will be a year process in this one area. They're saying there will be ending next April, not this one, the following. So once I have a better understanding, I will put a road program together for 2024, 25, and the following years after that. What I am looking to do is take the money that was for the road program this year and move it again. Chris, can you go to ADA ramps first, Chris? I'm looking to go to the replace all the ADA ramps in this whole area to get ahead of the paving. So if they complete the job next spring, all these ramps will be done this year, so we can go ahead and make up the plan and just go and pave. We don't have to worry about going back. This obviously is an infrastructure improvement you have to do before you pave. And obviously with the allotment they're giving us and whatever we decide to put into the paving, I would like to have everything ready to go by June of 24. So there's no holdbacks there. And of course, we adjust the paving by the road size. So that's how you get the differences and make up what we're willing to put into it. All right, Chris, any questions on that?
What? Sorry. Reverted to my Monday through Friday. Council or committee? Questions, comments? All right, Superintendent, continue.
Curbs and sidewalks, Chris? So curbs and sidewalks, pretty much this is in the same area. Part of this is in the same area. This is Elm Ave up to Continental, from Kensington to Continental. This is going to replace our borough-owned sidewalk there for, well, half of it. This will give us the update that we need, all the cracked slabs, bring us up on the ditch, and put a fence that's supposed to be there. So it would update that whole area. And then the other section would be the Oak Ditch to finish. We are starting that. It's been approved last year with the Voorhees project to do Kensington, Voorhees and Manning, the Oak Ditch where we own sidewalks. This will continue to go all the way up to Adams. We have had problems there with trip and falls that on some of the slabs that we've had. So I'd like to bring all those areas up to the current standards today. Again, this will be something that will complete the Oak Ditch, so we don't have to worry about that. And I believe that's all the sidewalks and curbs we have besides next year's where we'll just continue down Elm.
Question, council, committee? Probably, Mr. Melito, the questions will come at the end, so feel free to continue.
Okay, storm line, drain sewer line. If you see this year, in the same area that PSG will be working in, this is an improvement to continue the storm drains that we're doing and the water runoff that we've had problems with. Right now, Fenway Court and Lee, there's massive ponding there and puddling on both sides. There's 2 basins in that whole loop. So we get a lot of ponding, if they block with leaves, we get a lot of flooding in that area. What this will do is open up the basins and add 8 more in that whole area and attach to the drain and pretty much alleviate the water problem there. Okay, Chris, now go to parking lots. Parking lots. So this is KBG. As we all know, KBG has been falling apart for years. After talking with the swim club, after talking with the engineer and the traffic safety committee, obviously we want to pave it, but we also want to update it. With doing that, we have to add some sidewalks. This would be phase 1 of 2. This would start right on the bend where the John Lynch Way sign is. Obviously, all the paving would be done and sidewalks would be started right there. So kids wouldn't be walking in the roads or the parking lot as people are backing out. This would upgrade the parking lot and have us all ready to go for whenever recreation wants to upgrade their fields. That would be the final stage of KBG down here. But it also, in talking with, forgot his last name, Bob is his first name, from the swim club, this is definitely needed. Not only the paving, but just the safety of the pedestrians walking to the swim club. It's well overdue. And that is, the price of that includes engineering and police, the police duty for that project. Now, again, this project, just so everybody knows here, it's not going to be done during the summer. This will have to be started after Labor Day, because once they start going, by the time we award the money and all that. So just so you know, it can't be done during swim club hours and all that stuff. So, but that's what we're looking at. And of course, the last one is emergency funding, capital funding. We've always put this in place. This is for our sewers. Just in case we get a call, we always put money aside because it can get very expensive on an emergency call when something collapses. And of course, borough buildings. Talking with Lizette, we'll be looking at the borough buildings next year to possibly decrease this due to some of the buildings being replaced and a lot of the systems being on the other buildings being replaced, such as HVAC units and roofs and windows and all that. So that's the budget in a nutshell. Any question, or may I give back to you?
Yeah, so Jason, you're looking at an $11.5 million budget between 2023 and 2027, correct?
Yes.
And I'm looking at your sheets. So this year you're looking for 3.6 million, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And
So
most of that,
council's going to ask you this question,
that's
but what can we put off? And I know you don't like putting things off, but I'm going to ask it right now because that's a lot of money.
well, the reason why it's a lot of money, Mayor, because obviously the borough hall. The borough hall is definitely, the $2 million is definitely part of that. Looking at, I mean, I guess it's up to, it's truthfully, to me, I can't see anything to put off because you have, and this is the reason why, the garbage truck is rotted out. It's almost gone. That I can't put off for vehicles. Lawnmowers, I moved one out.
I don't know what the rest of the council feels, but the vehicle line is not an issue for me.
Okay. So,
and I assume we can't put off the parking lot because it's unsafe, correct?
yep.
Okay. So that leaves curbs, sidewalks, and storm drains. Is there anything?
Hold on a second.
Sure.
Because now we've said something here. The parking lot
That's
is
just
unsafe.
me. I'm just saying me. Oh, you mean about unsafe?
Yeah, unsafe. So does that mean that we have to close off the parking lot for the summer since we're not getting to work on it until the fall? Is there something that we need to do to make it safe? I mean, you're saying something, you're putting us on notice as being a mayor and council at a public budget hearing here. So how unsafe is it? What are we looking at here?
Councilman, I am going to bring in a hot box from another town to smooth over the bad areas, but that will only last temporarily to make it safe for everybody.
Right.
I'd be using a running budget for that, but what's happening now is a price for asphalt, a ton of asphalt is about $200. So a truckload of asphalt of 20 ton just to skim over parking lots, that's a temporary fix, is starting to, it's only gonna be a temporary fix, and it's
All right,
starting.
so it's safe. I don't want to get into a long discussion. We're gonna
Yeah,
make it
you know,
safe
we're
until we get
safe.
repaved.
Yeah, we're safe with that. We'll
Okay,
make that
all
safe.
right. That's it. That's all I wanted to do, make sure.
Jason,
Thank
I
you.
also want to ask you, you said you're going to bring in a hot box from another town. We bought a hot box for River Edge.
No, a hot box is a paving box, sir.
Oh,
We
a
put a
paving-
hot box for patch. This is a paving box where you see it paved.
So they're both called hot boxes.
Yeah, one's called, it's a different style hot box, right? So with that being said, yes, the parking lot will be safe. The ADA ramps in that area, it all depends how fast we're gonna go. When PSE&G comes in, they're gonna want to pave. And I don't know with the ADA ramps, how
Yeah,
long.
I didn't bring up the ADA because just for the council's knowledge, because of what's happening with PSE&G, they're going to be ripping up our roads. They're going to be modernizing the system. They're going to be putting in high pressure, and then they're going to want to repave. And to repave, we have to be up to ramps. So I'm assuming, Jason, that all ramps you put in were in anticipation for the PSE&G.
Yes.
So, and because I'm aware of a little bit of this, and the finance committee is too. Before we ask for questions, and I mean, this is a council decision, not mine, but I think the vehicles have to stay. I think the parking lot has to stay. The ADA ramp has to stay. We have to, so that leaves curb, sidewalk, storm drain, and sewer line. So the council's going to ask this question. So instead of, letting it come out in piecemeal, I'm going to ask you directly. What must be done? What absolutely must be done? And what would be nice to do, but maybe we want to put off, and the council may choose not to put it off, but I need for you to be very specific about that, Jason.
Well, the ADA ramps and all that have to be done. Curbs and sidewalks are in that same realm. It's still
for those streets.
Yeah, for those areas.
You have streets on that are not PSE&G streets right now?
No, but they are streets that we've had some complaints on other issues, slip and fall issues. Like they are starting to crack, break, trees are lifting them pretty good. So what I could do is possibly
Lizette, if I'm not mistaken, just for a second, as long as we make a good faith effort to move forward, I think we're pretty much covered, because Jason brought up a liability question. Is that your understanding, or is it that we have to do it right now because if we don't, we are exposed?
Well,
My opinion is that we are exposed sidewalks, since we're improving the relative area,
Okay.
it has to be a full project.
So that supports your position, Jason. Keep going.
Yeah. And just so you also know, Mayor, the park is being retrofitted too in one of these areas. They are doing some of the open space will be in Brookside. So that is actually from side to side there too. So they will be going curb line to curb line there, going right through. Okay. And then you look at the buildings. I think Chris can talk a little bit more about this. I put in for $2 million. That's more of a Lizette and Chris question. I know where we should be, but I know Chris does his magic on stuff, and
well, I know that's mostly Borough Hall, so let's skip over that. Is there any wiggle room with and I know that emergency capital funds is all three of you, so let's go to storm drain and the sewer lines. Are all of them absolutely necessary for this year?
So that's for this year. That's again getting back to Fenway Court, where they're going to be digging up, and that's part of the PSE&G replacement. Obviously, we've started on Voorhees last year. That project will be started this year, but funded last year. And of course, we're trying to continue that. And if PSE&G are in that area, again, this is an infrastructure improvement that's under the road. So that's something that, has to be determined whether or not I believe it should be done, but again.
Are you saying that PSE&G are going to be on Fenway Court and then they would be repaving?
Yeah.
Okay.
So all the way from Howland to Manning, Mayor, PSE&G is ripping up one side of every road there, pretty much.
Yeah. The
So,
reason I'm kind of chiming in is because I've been a part of the email chains for the PSE&G. I do understand. So I wanted to do an overview and ask so none of the projects that you're asking in regards to ADA ramps, sidewalks and curbs, storm drain and sewers are streets that PSE&G is not going to be working on.
so there are some sidewalks and curbs, obviously up the Oak Ave ditch that, let me get to the sidewalks here.
So the public knows, as mayor, I get CC'd on most emails and certainly all engineering. So one of the things that the council, finance committee is probably, but the council in general is not as up to date on is the back and forth between PSE&G, our engineer, and our superintendent or our BA. So that's why I'm chiming in now instead of doing as I've done in the previous budget presentations, which was have the council speak and then make comments or questions at the end. So the PSE&G update is a major update. They've left us to one of the last towns that they're doing in Bergen County. I think that's correct. Lizette, is it not?
Yes, and this phase, we're at the tail end. They are applying for additional funding, but Riveredge is part of the last phase. And if they receive further funding from the state, then they would move from Continental to the Oradell border in future years.
And so that's some information that some of the council may not be privy to, and that's why I'm chiming in at this time. Mr. Melito, are there any improvements that are not directly that could be impacted by PSE&G's activity in our town?
Is there, you're saying, is there none, or is there, all of it will be impacted?
So there's nothing on your budget that isn't a street that they're going to be working on.
So there's three streets. So if you took the Oak Ave ditch, if you went to sidewalks, it would be about, you could drop the budget probably down around $80,000, not doing the Oak Ave ditch through all those streets. But again, I don't know where recreation is with their open space money. I know they're working on Brookside. There's a pathway that goes from Monroe to Concord, and that meets our sidewalks there. So if they're going to be redoing all that, and I understood there's some ADA ramp work being done in there, those sidewalks should be updated with this project, because you're going to be updating the actual park, concrete. So if you want to remove some of those streets out of there, I can work on that and possibly open up roughly around 50 to 60,000 that I can remove.
So at this point, I've hopefully created a context that the public can understand, given, that this is not something that the public pays attention to on a regular basis, and it's very technical. And it has a lot of components to it, including, PSE&G's role in updating the infrastructure throughout the state of New Jersey and Bergen County. So now what I'll do is I'll leave it to council and committee to ask further questions. Okay. Hearing none, we're not cutting anything today, Jason. If we cut anything, it would happen next meeting. Council President Kaufman. You're muted, Michelle.
Sorry, I think it was the storm drain page. There was something for 2025. Right, the 168 for 2025. Isn't that going to be redone this year by PSE&G, the Valley to Howland?
So I put that in there. That is a place marker I've put in. Talking last year with, I believe the mayor was in there when we were doing Valley Road. What we're trying to do is I put in a section to start updating the Oak Ave ditch from Valley Road all the way up to Wayne, the actual ditch portion behind the homes. So I would like to start taking a little at a time and start updating that, opening it up, putting the fencing and making sure that our drainage is flowing out of town. If you go behind some of the houses, it does need, the ditch does need some help. So that would just be I put in a program just to make it up to, take about 10 years to get up to Wayne to open that all up and clean it up. So we have no problems with down trees and everything else.
Okay, so that doesn't interact with the sidewalks.
No.
Thank you, Council President. Mr. Rulman.
This is just an idea or just a comment that I've been thinking about. The way I understand it, when PSE&G does work, they pave the portion that they have worked on, but they leave the rest of it to us if we have to do it ourselves. Is it possible to get the funds from PSE&G and postpone the pavement until the next budget year? Is that a reasonable approach or a thoughtful approach? It doesn't have to be. I just don't know.
That is something in the process. Some of the roads were, if they were paved within the last 5 years and they're part of this project, PSE&G has to pay from curb to curb. We're working also with Suez to see if there's any overlap, and PSE&G paves their half, Suez pays their other half. Depending on the condition of the road, our borough engineer is working on some type of hybrid where either PSE&G pays their half, depending on the street, or gives the borough the funding and does a swap, so that way we could incorporate it for a full pave. So all of that's being taken into consideration. It just depends on the street, where it is on the moratorium list, and the condition of the streets.
Okay, it sounds like you're thinking the same way conceptually that I was thinking, so that's fine. Thank you.
Any other question from council or committee? So to sum up, Mr. Melito, before I have you, Superintendent Melito, before I have you finish, the budget is very high for this year, 3.7 million, but it's not because we're choosing to do optional work. It's because of PSE&G's role in our town at this time and the need to maximize the paving that they're going to be doing, and that the residents of River Edge will not have to pay for. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, that is, Mayor. And just to add to that, I know it's pulling a lot up. It used to be that was going to be later on. So of course we're pulling a lot up now. So later on, the cost will actually decline a lot. So in later years, right now it's yes, we're pulling up $3.9 million to do renovations and to stay in front of PSE&G for infrastructure projects before they pave. But where they're going to see, they will definitely see the savings down the road. I know it's a lot today, but down the road, since you're pulling it up, years will go down drastically.
And is it fair to say, in your opinion, your professional opinion, Superintendent Melito, that if we weren't making these infrastructure improvements and simply let PSE&G come and go, that would place a greater burden on future taxpayers?
Yes, it would cost way more money. You are correct in that, Mayor.
All right. So, Superintendent, any closing comments?
No, I just want to thank everybody. I know the council looks at this stuff really hard, and I've had a lot of questions called on me, and they're very understanding. They do their job. I just want everybody that sits here, all the residents, to know that. And again, these are big purchases, and they do look into them and try to figure out ways themselves. They get involved to try to figure out different ways. And it's really, it's a good thing to see. So it's just not one vision. So, and I like to thank Lizette and of course, Chris, because every time I call and ask them for another question or do we have this, I think they're bashing their head against the table because that's all I hear, so thank you guys.
You're welcome, Superintendent. I think I speak for the council, at least I hope I do, with our admiration for the hard work that you and Mr. Battaglia and Ms. Rapatello do as a team. And I wish I had also said this when Chief Walker and Chief Caridi were here, because they also, we are very lucky in River Edge to have department heads and the leadership that is team-based, and it makes for a productive and efficient running of municipal government. And we're really very, very grateful.
Mayor, one more thing. I will clean those numbers up on the sidewalks to see if I can reduce any of that for you.
That would be help, as we'll be having to make some cuts. And if we know that we have some latitude elsewhere, then perhaps we won't have to make as much cuts in other departments. So we really do appreciate that, Superintendent.
All right, thank you.
All right, are we good to move on, or does the council need a 2-minute break? And the committee. All right.
I think we should take a 2-minute break, please.
All right, let's do that. We'll be back at say 3:05, which is 3.5 minutes from now. Okay. Okay, it's now it's been 3 hours and 5 minutes, and that's I said we'd come back around then. So we are now at the Recreation Department presentation. Lisa, no, not Lisa, Ms. Abertola, who will be presenting?
I will be presenting for the Recreation Department.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. So let's just make sure everybody's here. I see 1, 2, 3, 4. I think all the council's here, and it looks like it's our committee here. Yeah, Ken's here and Al's here. Okay, and Don's here. Okay, yes, please begin.
In your books, you have the detailed verbiage that our interim recreation director, Michelle Ryan, had prepared. This is a more simplified version that just enumerates the estimated costs. And what had happened last year, through the Joint Insurance Fund, we had a safety inspection of our parks conducted. And there were issues that were identified that the JIF had identified that the borough must work on, must complete. And we have to make a good faith effort and present a plan that we are addressing these issues. And the issues involve both Brookside and Memorial Parks, the playground structures, and the walkways. And the walkways either are old, uneven, or being uplifted by tree roots. So for this year, there is Brookside Park for $437,650. All of the projects will be leveraged with our open space trust fund, as well as soliciting grants through the Bergen County Open Space Trust Fund program, the Municipal Park Improvement Program, to minimize having to use capital. For this year with Brookside, we are installing a new playground. The playgrounds are anywhere from 25 to over 30 years old. They are not ADA compliant. And in addition to ADA compliance, they will be inclusive with sensory and inclusivity components. So that way all children can play together. For Brookside also, there is some walking path being corrected, replaced, and as well as flooring and fencing flooring and surfacing being taken care of. For 2024, same thing with Memorial Park, is the replacement of the playground and the walkway, site clearing. What Ms. Ryan had done is she did apply for the state local recreation grant improvement program that there's up to $100,000 in availability. We will know by mid-April whether or not we will be funded that amount. If we are, we will apply to leverage that funding with the Bergen County Open Space Program. for next year. In the event we don't receive the state's local recreation improvement grant award, then we'll swap it with just finishing Brookside Park. For 2025, we do have to replace our AED devices. They do have a shelf life of 10 years. And in the meantime, Ms. Ryan is looking into either other grants or donations to minimize that cost. Also in 2025, it's any necessary playground improvements, walking path improvements, grading and drainage, to comply with the GIF identification report for repairs. In 26, it is the same, maybe looking at the pavilion towards the end of addressing the GIF report to improve the sound for events. And just in a nutshell, the 5-year plan addresses the GIF safety issues. That we look at what we currently have, upgrade it, make it safe, make it accessible before looking onto doing any additions elsewhere.
Okay, now, you presented to us the $437,650, but on the general capital ordinance summary sheet, that's listed as 445,000. So is that number being adjusted?
One moment.
So the version I have of the and maybe the rest of the council, the one I have from my book is 2023 General Capital Ordinance Summary. It says Parks and Fields, and then it actually says 2022 Open Space Project, Brookside Playground, 385,000 plus 60,000 is 445,000. So I assume that's the number you're referring to when you're referring to that it's a corrected number with 437,650.
Correct. This was taken from the grant application, the 437,650, but the grant only covers the construction, the hard costs, not the soft costs with engineering, with all of those site improvements. So it was estimated rounded up to what you see in the book of 445. And then it's being offset with our open space trust fund of 150. The grant amount we received from the county, we didn't receive the full 50% based on the number of applications the county received from all the other municipalities. So received 144, 447. So then that leaves a balance of 150, 553 to authorize in debt.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure everybody understood how that went across the line. So this is, you've only dealt with the first item. I assume you're going to be dealing with the next three?
Under the parks?
Yes.
On the general sheet?
Yeah.
The other item.
I'm just asking because
Yeah.
we're going to go to questions now. And I
Correct.
just want to make sure for the flow of the meeting that you will or will not be dealing with tree planting KGB
Yes.
of the Roosevelt Field.
Yes.
All right, so
I
we
will.
open it to the council and the committee. Are there questions about Brookside Playground replacement listed under Parks and Fields 2022 Open Space Project? Seeing none, Ms. Apertola, please continue.
Okay, Chris, can you go to the general capital ordinance summary? That has the other items that fell under Parks and Fields.
Sorry, Mayor, you said Brookside, that you meant the Brookside and Memorial, what we were just presented both?
Listed on the capital ordinance as Brookside only. So I'm assuming that that would be the proper way to identify it. Is that true, Lizette?
Yes, in Ms. Ryan's narrative, it has memorial, but that was funded last year. We had a way to reappropriate the grant award from the outdoor exercise equipment, and that contract came in during the holidays, so that's currently being worked on. There's no need to add funding for that field.
Councilman
so-
Fagan, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's called Brookside just because it's this year the money is being allocated to Brookside as opposed to the next 3 years going to Memorial. Is that
Yes,
5-year plan?
correct.
Okay.
This year's only Brookside. It's just to show that we, this is what our plan is, and our plan is to address what the joint insurance fund had identified as a need for improvement.
And then after this year, we're going to turn our attention to Memorial, where we're going to dig up the pathways in Memorial and reconstitute them, right?
That is the plan if we receive the state funding. If not, we may just go back to complete Brookside for next year and then commit the next 3 years on Memorial.
In any event, Memorial has to be done because the Joint Insurance Fund told us it has to be done.
Yes, there's no way around it. Memorial Park must be improved. Its walkways must be improved, and the playground equipment must be improved and brought up to code.
Awesome. I look forward to the improved Memorial Park. Thank you.
Great clarifying questions there, Councilman. We appreciate that. Mr. Roman.
I guess this is a clarifying question because I missed something along the way. The Brookside project here has 385. Can somebody tell me what section 20 cost is?
Section 20 costs are the cost for the engineer. Section 20 covers the
Okay,
professional
okay.
fees.
Okay, I got it. All right, so the total cost is 445. We have grants and open space money for a little under 300,000. Is that correct?
Yes,
But we're going to authorize a debt of 150, but we're not putting anything in the capital improvement fund. Don't you have to put in a percentage into that for this year's budget?
We're able to utilize the open space money that we have. We're able to utilize that as our down payment because we're making a contribution. It's just coming from open space instead of from the capital improvement fund.
Okay, I don't understand that.
So what we're saying is that if we're taking it from open space is funding it and not this year's budget, essentially.
Okay,
Correct.
so we're not, we will not have. But all right, again, I'm confused here. The total cost is 445. We have a grant of 144 and open space of 150. So that's close to 300,000. If you take that off of the total cost of 445, you're coming up with another 150,000. I mean, what am I missing?
yes, the
I can see
extra,
you saying you're taking it from open space, but aren't you doing it twice?
no, it's on, the balance falls under debt authorized, the capital improvement fund, that's the down payment that would be coming out of operating. But since we are using a trust fund to fund some of the balance, that covers the down payment. So you don't have to
But
dip
isn't the
into,
trust fund the 150 that's in open space?
yes,
It isn't that, you're using it twice.
no, we're not.
That's
we're not using it twice.
300,000 plus another grant of 144. That's your 475. You're
Open
either
s-
authorizing a debt of 150 or you're not.
We are. The open space is a trust fund. The 150, 553 is from the from the capital bond ordinance. So there's three
But if
components.
if you're going to authorize a debt of 150, 553, don't you have to put some money into the capital improvement fund? Don't you have to put that, was it 10% or 5% into that fund?
The capital improvement fund requirement, yes, it's 5% on the total project. However, because the open space fund is not authorizing debt, it's counting towards that 5%. So rather than you know, if you subtract the open space entirely, you take the 445, let's round the grant up to 145, where we have a $300,000 project. Our 5% down payment requirement would normally be $15,000, but we're using $150,000 of our open space funds, which is cash. So there's no debt authorization for that open space. It's cash that we're collecting by way of our open space tax. So our down payment, we don't have an additional down payment on top of the $150,000 that
Okay,
the borough
all right.
already contributed.
All right. This is accounting magic, but go
Yes,
ahead.
that's exactly what it is. I was
Okay.
about to chime in. This is an accounting tool to lessen the burden on the public.
Okay, I got it now.
Right. It's a
Thank
good
you.
question, Al. Other people might have thought the same thing, and you asking it helps the public understand where we're going. We're using
Okay.
every absolute tool at our disposal to reduce the burden on the taxpayer that we can.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Ms. Apertola.
Okay, the next item, tree planting that came from the Shade Tree Commission, that they were requesting $19,000 from the Open Space Trust Fund for park projects. Last year, the Shade Tree Commission received funding for the shade tree planting throughout town. The Open Space Trust Fund is to be used to leverage open space grants either from the county or the state, not for individual funding requests. So if the governing body wishes to grant the Shade Tree Commission this $19,000, it would have to come out of the majority from capital. They did have a prior encumbrance of $6,121 from open space from two predecessors ago. And that would just zero out that encumbrance. But again, this is a governing body decision.
If the council doesn't mind, I'm going to ask for a clarifying question.
Mhm.
Is that, did I hear you say that this 19,000 is not for city streets, but is for park streets?
Yes, I pulled the email when the budget request was sent, and they said, in addition to their operating costs, they said Shade Tree is also requesting 19,000 from open space for park projects.
Okay.
This has nothing to do with whatever is planned in the recreation 5-year budget. I'm not sure if it's for beautification purposes or for the arboretum. That is a standalone request from the commission.
Councilman Kanigo.
You may have just answered, because I was going to say, what specifically are they planning to do? And also, have they vetted it with recreation and with DPW vis-a-vis all these other projects that we've discussed?
To my knowledge, it has not been vetted with recreation, and I don't want to speak for Mr. Melito, but I do not believe it's been vetted with DPW either.
Councilwoman Monsanto Cohen.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't the agreement or the understanding that tree planting was going to be on a every 2-year cycle?
For city streets, yes.
For
So
city
that's why I
streets.
asked for, that's why I
Yeah.
asked for this clarification. We when I was liaison and when I was on the council, and we because there is a significant cost to for transportation and for planting, we the council at that time, the council of course can do what it wants, but we felt that what we do is every 2 years, so that we would maximize our dollars for planting and transportation. So that's why I'm asking this clarification about 19,000. If it's not for the trees, then that was not the understanding. So this is an additional that was not part of the understanding that that council back then, which does not bind this council, understood. Now, the benefit to putting money into tree planting is that maintains our property values, because curb appeal is a huge part of property value, and we fall behind year after year after year. But that understanding was based on what we were budgeting for street trees. Councilwoman Monsanto, do you have a follow-up?
So yes, so I do agree that that number, given everything that has to impacts the parks, especially since all the improvement that will be done in the parks, and if this is being requested for parks, there has to be a conversation with the RAC and DPW to understand where that money is going to go, or if that even is necessary at this time, given the improvements that are going to be going to the parks.
Okay.
That would be my suggestion.
Is the council in agreement? Nodding heads would be great. Okay. So, Ms. Apertola, if you can send a memo to Shade Tree about our concern and or a phone conversation, and that the council's decision about that 19,000 would, to some degree, be impacted by the answer to that question. And if they wish to show up at the next meeting to talk to us about that, that would also be acceptable. Councilman Kanika.
Yeah, that was it. I would also like to know what it is that they're planning to do. So beyond just communicating with the other two departments, let us know what it is that they're looking to do so that we understand where this money is being spent.
And Ms. Apertola, if you could make it clear or make a distinction, not make it clear, if you could make a distinction of our understanding about funding that we do every year for street trees, which has been an understanding between Shade Tree and the residents of the River Edge and the council versus what we might be doing in the parks.
Okay.
Great. Please continue.
Okay, so we have the next two items, KBG Field and Roosevelt Field. What had been found is in 2020, when that project was, when that ordinance was put together, the intent was to use open space funding from the county for improvements to Roosevelt Field, even though the application that had been submitted in 2019 involved improving KBG. So there is an entry in our accounting that indicates improvements for Roosevelt Field. And the intent was with the shared service agreement approved on Monday to provide up to $100,000 to the Board of Ed for improving Roosevelt Field. But we can't transfer that balance to KBG because that was authorized based on a grant, but the grant doesn't exist. So in order to fund the 2019 portion of the KBG field improvements, in which we're waiting to hear from the Department of Environmental Protection down at the state what is authorized with the floodplains and the watershed to improve KBG. The original ordinance from 2020, that component for Roosevelt, a portion has to be canceled. Money has to be set aside to make the KBG project whole, and funding has to be set aside to complete the $100,000 appropriation to reimburse the schools for improving Roosevelt Field. I know it's a mouthful.
No, we've had certainly a lot of conversations, both publicly and privately, about it. Would you explain to the public why the $100,000 for Roosevelt Field is listed as $66,825? The council knows, but for the public's benefit.
Because from that original appropriation back in 2020, the only amount that can be used is the difference, which is what, 33,175. So we have that funding available. The 66,825 is to make the $100,000 contribution whole. And the agreement says up to 100,000. So if the improvement that would be on the borough side for Roosevelt Field, it said comes out to 80,000 or 90,000, that balance would be canceled.
Okay. So, and would you now speak for the council's benefit and the committee's benefit and the public's benefit to what we're talking about with this 200,000? in respect that until we can't do anything until the DEP responds to us, and if they do respond to us in a positive way, what that 200,000 would be for.
It would be for grading, drainage, irrigation improvements at KBG to mitigate the flooding that is caused by the river, and that is why we had to apply to the DEP, improve the softball fields, see if anything can be expanded. And that's about it. We do have grants from the county from 2019 and 2020. We've been granted extensions to complete the project because the determining factor is the state. And in order to apply to the state, we had to do surveying of the field, and then based on their regulations, they said the surveying had to be expanded to include the swim club and the DPW. So that had been done. All the paperwork is down in Trenton. So we're waiting for the DEP to come on site to do their evaluation and respond to us on what is approved, if any permits will be required, and what level of improvements would be authorized, and if we have to make any adjustments to our planning.
Okay, only because I think the council is going to ask this question. I'm just going to ask it up front. And I think I know what the answer is, but it's a bit of a rhetorical question for the public and for the committee. It's a two-part question. Part one, if we canceled out the $200,000, would that place the grants that we have, that we are currently waiting on from the state and the county, would that nullify them? And part two, is it possible without nullifying, or if nullification is a possible reality, is it possible to push it off to the next year? So if you could address those two questions. In other words, do we have to put it in this year's budget? And if we don't, what latitude do we have?
We do have to put it in this year's budget because I've already requested 2 extensions. The deadline for the original grants had passed. The original deadline was December of 2021. And then for the 2020 grant application, the deadline was this past December. So I've already requested 2 extensions. The county will continue to grant us extensions as long as we show that we're doing something, that we're working on the project. And if we do not fund from our end, then that will significantly reduce or cancel out the funds that we're receiving from the county, and then it will go back to the county pool, which all other 69 towns are eligible to solicit.
One last question before I go to the council. Again, it's a bit of a rhetorical question, but if the DEP comes back with an unfavorable report, might that lead to the cancellation of the project? And it's a hypothetical, but for the public's sake and for the council's sake and the committee's sake, let's just talk about that for a moment.
If the DEP comes back with an unfavorable report, what we would do is look at what is authorized, what's allowed. And in order to not lose the funding, we could just apply to reappropriate it to any of the planned projects, either to complete Brookside or Memorial, under the Bergen County Open Space Grant Trust Fund guidelines, as long as a property is on the open space inventory filed with the DEP. We could always apply for the repurposing of a grant, and if that comes to be, by saying the state won't let us improve an original grant location, it is just a matter of paperwork and time to reappropriate those funds. We won't lose it. I will make sure that we will get the funding that we need to make our parks safe and usable for our various programs.
So would it be fair to say that the $200,000 that is going into the capital budget is a positive budgetary item based on the fact that even if we aren't granted permission to do Roosevelt, we can reduce the burden to the public in other projects that we're currently working on.
Correct. If DEP says we can't do anything on KBG and we apply for a repurposing grant, once the county awards that, if that comes to pass, then what we would do is adopt a reappropriation ordinance to change the designation of the improvement from KBG to either Roosevelt or Brookside, whatever the case may be.
All right. So let me open it out to the council and committee. Any questions, comments? Okay. I think the last thing is administration.
Okay. In prior years, I had requested funding for records disposal and document scanning, namely the building department files. But since we're under the Borough Hall renovation, I am not requesting any funding this year for the document scanning to save some funding. And as far as computers and IT equipment, we do have a balance of what had been funded last year. Our IT consultant has said that we should keep a balance of 12,000 for whether it's computer replacement, should anything happen with the server, any hardware. So this 7,500 is to bring that balance whole. And if we don't use it, there will be nothing requested next year. And especially since we're working with the computers that we have, and a lot of them were replaced in the 2 years that I've been here with the borough. So this is just to maintain that balance for in case any IT needs. And once the Borough Hall project is done, we'll see if any computers need to be replaced at that point.
Any questions from council or committee? Okay, Lizette, the last thing, we've kind of already touched on it, but if you can just speak to the New Jersey DOT ordinance.
The New Jersey DOT ordinance for Bogart Road Section 7, we did receive funding, and this type of grant application solely pays for the construction costs, will reimburse for the construction cost. And since this is through that type of grant, it is broken out separately from our regular road program. And this is for continuation of concrete work on the sidewalks on Bogart Road. And then once that is done, once all the concrete work is done, future grants will either extend the concrete work or do the mill and pave of the roadway. So as I had mentioned, the grant is on a reimbursement basis and it only reimbursed the construction cost.
Question from the council, Council President Kaufman.
Just wondering, isn't there a capital improvement fund deposit needed?
I was actually just going to make that point of because it's very similar to the question Al asked earlier. We're allowed when you have a state grant, you're allowed to count the state grant as your capital improvement fund as the contribution towards that payment. So you don't have an additional 5% requirement. That's the case for state grants. It's also the case for NJIB projects. There's a couple of exceptions to the 5%, and this is one of them.
Thank you.
Any other member of council or committee? Councilwoman Monsanto Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor. Lisette, so for this grant, how does that work with the work that PSCNU will be doing? Do we have can that be postponed? Can the grant be used after the work is done? Understanding that it's in 4 phases?
This area is not in the PSCNG work area. PSCNG was on Bogart Road, but closer to the Oradell border. This is still a few blocks away from Cherry Hill School.
Okay, Superintendent Melito.
Yeah, just to follow up with Lizette, right now we are going down the curbs and sidewalks with this grant. The actual mill and paving will not be done this year or next year. We will just be continuing from Howland Ave down, 5 and 6 down. So we get so far and then we'll come back and pave that section. So the PSE&G project will not affect this grant.
Okay, any other question from any member of council or committee? All right, so essentially we've completed the agenda.
No, there was one more item under roads
missed it.
and sidewalks. That's not part of Mr. Melito's
My bad. Okay.
budget. It's just the CDBG
Go ahead.
roads. We did CDBG's Community Development Block Grant, that is federal funding. And we have a census tract that allows us to apply for funding for infrastructure improvements. So this is for sidewalk replacement along Oxford Terrace and Rutgers Place. The total cost is $270,000. The CDBG grant covers construction costs, and we received almost what we had asked for. Normally, we receive half of the construction cost, but of the 180, we were awarded $158,300. So this is we're maximizing this area while we still have it. As you'll see in this capital ordinance summary, there is nothing from the library. The library had requested ADA improvements to their bathrooms. However, at some point we will lose the census tract. When that happens, then the only type of application we could submit is for ADA improvements to municipal buildings. So once that happens, then we will apply for grant funding for that library bathroom.
Questions, comments? Okay. Are we now done with our, Mr. Battaglia?
Thanks. I just wanted to quickly clarify, because again, this is a grant that we're awarded, but we do have a 5% down payment requirement. It's not a state grant, so it doesn't fit that criteria. So I just wanted to clarify that just in case there was a question about it.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, so it's 11:45-ish. We've done great work. Lizette, is there anything further we need to discuss before we close this meeting?
No, our agenda was to have the overview and discuss the capital budget request.
Excellent. Is there any new business or old business that the council feels we need to take up at this time? All right. We've done wonderful work, and I want to thank our volunteers as well as the council and our professionals, as well as our department heads. Really wonderful work. Now, for the public's sake, Lizette, we're meeting again next Saturday, I believe?
Yes.
And at that time, our agenda will be to start making decisions about capital as well as operating budget. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And for the for the public's benefit, they may come. We will open before we begin the meeting as required. And if we have members of the public present, we can also open at the end. We have only one attendee. It's Neil. Neil, if you want to ask a question, raise your hand and I'll ask the council to open the public. If you don't, I won't ask the council to do that. It's not on the agenda, but we want to give everyone a chance. And we do have Councilman Canigo who has his hand up, but I'm going to first go to Neil. I do not see Neil raising his hand at this point. So I'm going to assume that we don't need an additional opening. Councilman Kanigo, anything that you want to add?
Yeah, just one final comment for everybody who may be watching and anybody who may not be aware. Right now, the estimated impact of each $100,000 that we have to raise taxes to the average homeowner in River Edge is $26.43 as per the book here. So if we go up 100,000, 26. If we go up 200,000, 50 and change, and so forth. So for next week, we're gonna cut the 100,000s as much as possible and get rid of everything we possibly can, except for what we must do for this year, because we're facing that kind of dire financial situation. So I will say that next week, I'm gonna be the bad guy that says no to everything, and I'm gonna be trying to convince everybody to say no to everything, because I think we really have to do that. And that's why I point to this number, 2643 per 100. And that's what we're aiming to cut out as much as possible. So thank you. And and a big thank you to everybody, the chiefs, Jason, everybody who gave presentations, and of course to Chris and Lizette for their exceptional work that they do for us every single day of the year here in River Edge.
Well, for the public to know, if you are on the finance committee, raise your hand so that they can have a visual. So we have our finance chair, Michelle Kaufman. We have our finance member, Lizette Montesano Cohen, and Dario Canigo, council persons, of course, but I'm simply recognize them as finance chair. They have done hours and hours of work. We are very grateful for their interfacing with Mr. Bagtaglia, with Ms. Apatella, as well as all that they do for us. So a round of applause for our finance committee. Great job. Finance Chair,
I just wanted to point out, as Chris noted at the beginning, most of our cost increases for this year are not negotiable, and we're doing whatever we can, but there is not that much that we can do.
All right, and again, I want to thank Mr. Ruhlman, Mr. Kraudheimer. Ken, did I say it right this time? I hope I did.
Just leave the ER off. Just Kraudheim.
Kraudheim. Oh, that's what I keep doing. I keep adding the. I feel so bad, Ken. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Mr. Kraudheim, thank you, and Miss Sanders, Mrs. Sanders, thank you for being a part of our committee. We hope that you come back next year, and we hope that we have a few more people to join you. But thank you very, very much. I think we've covered everyone. Our department heads are professionals. So could I have a motion to adjourn this meeting of the Mayor and Council, special meeting of the Mayor and Council Budget Committee?
Moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 All right. Thank you all, and see you in a week.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Have a good day.
Bye.